Yeah, now we in this piece.
Faso, getting looser. The founder of Ascom, rocking my Aracusa. Strength, power, and integrity. Here in Burkina Faso, the land of upright men. Check it out, brothers and sisters.
Okay, I know why I paused, because it's just that video.
Irritated Genie, here in Burkina Faso, getting looser. The founder of Ascom, rocking my Aracusa. Strength, power, and integrity. Here in Burkina Faso, the land of upright men. Check it out, brothers and sisters.
All right, peace and love. What up, though? What it do? What's popping? What's cracking? And what's happening? Time 9, time 10. We got our special guest in the building. The brother we all know and love that does the hard work. Irritated Genie in this piece. Been waiting to do this for a minute now. I don't know, for some reason that's not it, so I need to get rid of this. That's not the full joint, so we gonna go full light. I'm having a problem with this other monitor. I don't know why. We gonna do an intro right quick. I guess we gonna roll with the black tubes until I get the second monitor set up. I don't know why it's want to give me difficulties, but that's what it's doing. So give us a minute, family. Stay tuned.
YouTube, you fools try to limit me, muting and deleting channels, thinking that's the end of me. Y'all are not on my level, smaller than a centipede. This is my purpose, TBT is a ministry. I do not tire, my God gives me energy. Chose by Messiah, you believe, come get with me. Married to a black queen, we got the illest chemistry. Founded the black tube, and now we making history. Black tube, 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 what? Black tube, 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 what? TBT, 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 what? TBT, 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 what? TheBlackTube.com. I'm a giant killer, son of an omniscient God who's realer. If this be the thriller in Manila, I'm Ali in his prime. It's showtime, go time, about to take what's mine. We are not with your agenda. We showing real.
I said I'm smoke, fire, blowing air, carbon, earth, solid, water, wet. I'm steady beat, a sister soldier that dies effects. So gon' roll that hoopla and rah-rah and let's guess you talking about Atun, Namuna, Amara, pineal glands, all see your eyes. We call the third eye. We came to build, not pay your bill. Slang them in the municipality, city seals like roadkill, descendants of ancient mound builders. Not supposed to need encyclopedias, genetically encoded with 720. We got amnesia, claiming we Christian cretins in love with Yahweh, Muhammad, and Jesus. But you was living inside of God when you was a fetus. But believers and never believers, non-believers, cause we don't be lying, shaking hands and taking oaths with demons.
Your microphone is muted.
Thank you much. Like I say, long time coming, long time waiting. We are definitely in sync on topic, and what's most important, are the babies, are the children. And unfortunately, there is a lot of, you can't even call it mischievous, because I'm with you. Once you violate a child, it's over with. Man, woman, I don't have I'm not biased on either end, because as an adult, you know better, right? Once you reach a certain age, I do understand we do have an abundance of people who are, a bit mentally unstable, or, it happened with them and they never dealt with the trauma in order, as far as getting some type of counseling or whatnot again, to deal with their own personal trauma so that they don't repeat that cycle, right? And I kind of jumped into it. I want to, give the people, a background of yourself. I know you from DC, whatnot, Chocolate City, right?
Sure. So my name is Ayo Kimafi, but people know me as the Irritated Genie of Southeast. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C., child of the 70s. I'm 50, but I'm 51 years old now. So I've been around for a little while, and I'm a lecturer, author, activist, social architect. So I've done some things. Mostly the bulk of the work that I've done is related to African survival in the 21st century, Black people, issues concerning our survival. And there are a lot of different things. And I think one of the things you were mentioning before we started, before I just came in, you were talking about one of the issues that has been most prominent in my work, that I'm probably, in many ways, probably more people know me for this work than anything. And that's the work about our sexual sanity and health as Black people, certainly against the violation of children on any level, and against any type of un-African, non-Black traditional type of partnering relationships or what have you. I believe I'm strictly about the Black man, Black woman, Black child, Black family. I believe in those principles, and I try to promote them the best that we can. And that's what we're looking to protect in terms of the future of our people.
Indeed. So, as far as what we call master teachers, who are some of your influences?
Okay, so let's see. In terms of influences, are you talking more people who I met personally and influenced me in life, or are you talking about the people who I read information about and learned about historically?
Both. I know for a fact I'm gonna hear about John Henry Clark, Dr. Ben, and so on. But
okay, so historically, I would say I'll start talking about the people who I was influenced by. Definitely, as it relates to scholars and their scholarship and information, I think in terms of written work, the number one influence on me, if I had to rank them, I think would be Dr. Chancellor Williams. the destruction of Black civilization has had a profound impact on my life. It's totally changed my frame of reference to what we're capable of doing, because now I know where we came from as a race of people. So Dr. Chancellor Williams, I would say, is the predominant intellectual, historical framework that I come from in terms of written material. That's where I would start, I would say. In terms of some other people who I respect in that regard, of course, I have a lot of respect for Dr. John Henry Clark, like you said, Dr. Joseph Ben Yakinen, much love and respect to both of them, peace be upon them. Baba Dale Jones out of Philadelphia, phenomenal. Yeah, Baba Dale Jones he's one of the work that I do as it relates to film and media and its impact on our people. The strongest influence in my life in that regard was Baba Dale Jones. Second, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, but she had influence on me in terms of psychology and my understanding of the way things work and being able to measure some things, not by seeing behavior, but by seeing symbols and being able to read them and know what they mean and be able to interpret things that you see. A lot of influence with Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, Baba Neely Fuller, who just passed recently, peace be upon him. And yeah, very practical understanding of what racism is. Not using the word because somebody doesn't like us, but understanding on a practical level so that I can explain it to a person in a way that's tangible, they can measure, and it makes sense. Baba Neely Fuller put things into such great perspective that I truly appreciate all of his work. Let me see the other work I've done, people that I've read. I tell you, people that I've met or that I knew. A brother that I worked with that really was probably the brother that trained me in activism, Brother Kush the Black Unifier. He was a warrior out of DC, a straight up warrior, but brilliant brother. And I learned, I mean, it was invaluable what I learned from that brother. Really manhood and how to push forward and go and get what you want to get. In terms of spirituality and how I teach, the way that I do it, the mechanics that I use, and how I try to move people, I would say there are a couple of influences. In terms of the hardness and directness of it, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. After I heard him the first time,
I don't know if you can see my shirt, but I knew his name was gonna come up.
There it is. Yeah, absolutely. After I heard him the first time, it was a life-changing experience. I said, I don't have to tiptoe. I don't have to feel, I don't have to hide the fact I don't like the people that do harm to Black people. I can say it. I don't have to be worried about how people are going to feel about it. He kind of opened me up to something that was already my personality and inside of me. And it had a major influence on me. Probably if people see the work that I do now, or maybe my breadth of work and body of work, and the way that I do it and teach with the lectures, definitely Baba Ashraf Kwesi, the master teacher. He is the, like, one lecture that he did called Christianity, the Stolen Religion from Africa, and it's the second part, How the Enemy Became the Deity. If a person watches that and they have insight, you pretty much can see out of that grew the way I approach teaching people. I have to give them the credit for it. I never saw somebody give a lecture that I physically felt was real. Like I could feel it physically, the information. And that was another life-changing experience running into Baba Kwesi, because I used to be a person who didn't like religion, because as far as I was concerned, you can't fight. And I was like, I don't want to get abused and have to turn a cheek. I don't sound right to me turning no cheek. So I just avoided religion. Didn't want to have anything to do with it until I heard Baba Kwesi talk about spirituality and what it really was, and I can make sense out of it. And that totally opened me up, because I'm a naturally spiritual person, but I tried to avoid it because it was associated with weakness. When I went with him and learned, it was associated with strength and reality and truth. And so I love that. So he was a major impact. And then just a few figures that I would have to mention in history. If it's in America, people say, who's your favorite Black American? I say my greatest, my idol is Baba Nat Turner. That's
Prophet Nat Turner is the man I would want to be if I could be who I would want to be. A man who took the most profitable business in the history of the world on with 4 men and said, we're going to make this end. And struck the blow that 30 some odd years later actually ended the most profitable business in the history of the world. They may have replaced it with other things, but at least they had to replace it. So that's in America. Outside of America, I'll say secondly probably will be Baba Marcus Messiah Garvey. I love Baba Garvey and the great work that he did. He was probably the greatest leader in terms of organizing people and inspiring people that we've had in the Western Hemisphere. We've never seen anything like that before. And then if we talk about battlefield in modern times, it would be General Dessalines of Haiti. I love the Haitian story. I love Baba Boukman, Macandal, Mama Fatima, but Baba Dessalines, most people don't know. We hear Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, I Have a Dream speech, and we hear it every year, or at least most years we've heard it for our lives. But it's such a shame that we don't know our history. The speech given by General Dessalines for the independence of Haiti when they defeated the French and expelled them from the land of Haiti and declared their independence is the most glorious. I remember X-Clan used to say vainglorious. It's vainglorious. It's hard to believe a black man actually talked like that with that kind of confidence and a threat to the white world. At that time, what was looked at as the strongest military on the planet, the French. He told them, don't you ever bring your feet back and step your sacrilegious feet on this land of liberty. I mean, he was, it would be like Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad after winning a victory to free a nation of people and become sovereign. If you can imagine Dr. Khalid going up as the ruler of a nation, speaking to the people and what he would say and how he would say it, imagine that and take it and put it in 1804 in French, coming out the mouth of an African, a black man who was fearless and had defeated the greatest armies of the white race on the planet in pure, unadulterated, direct, raw combat. Outsmarted them and outworked them on the battlefield and defeated them. If you can imagine how that man would talk, it's amazing. And I honestly think for most people, we've never read nor heard the speech. It's magnificent. There's a book called The Irritated Genie. That's where I get my name from. If you get that book, it's in English. And you read that book, Baba Jacob Carruthers, peace be upon him. If you read that book, what the Haitians did will blow you away. And that speech, it'll send chills up your spine. So that's one more person. And my last person, I would say, I mean, it's so many. Of course, I got to give all my sisters credit, Queen Nzinga and Nanny of Jamaica. But if I go to an ancient person that really gives me inspiration, is Menkiparat Tahuti Mays. He's known as Tutmos III. He was the first world, what we call emperor, where he goes to your land and say, what's yours is mine and what's mine is mine. And, you know, he was, the way I read the history and understand it. I'll just say this one part and then we'll go into the story because I can do a lot. I can go. But it's so inspiring to me. This is a real story I'm sharing. I won't go deep into it, but this is real. It's not just conjecture or words. He was looking at the fact that the Asiatics continued over the course of hundreds, if not thousands of years to keep coming and invading Africa. And he was sick of it. And that dynastic period, they had pushed out the Hyksos, who had enslaved our people for 200 years. But he was like, it's not good enough that we put them out. I don't ever want them coming back thinking they're going to enslave our people. So he went on a war campaign and he won all of his battles. He was just, I mean, the first battle was so violent. And when people came to look at the aftermath of the battle, they said the end of the world will look like this. That's where we get the term Armageddon, because it was in a city called Megiddo. So the term Armageddon, the end of the world, comes from the Battle of Megiddo, where Menkiparat Tahuti Mays killed everything in sight. He was like, I'm sick of them. I'm sick of this constant threat that they'll come in and destabilize our civilizations, and I'm gonna do something about it. Well, long story short, he went out to battle after battle, but what he realized, and I'm sure his men had to tell him, look, Asia is deep. We're not going to live long enough to be able to go conquer all of these people. It's just not possible. So what are we going to be able to do to make sure we protect the interests of Black people in the future so that they don't come down here doing this stuff tomorrow? And so they sat down and thought about it, and they said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to capture the leaders in all of the lands that we conquer, round their leadership up, bring them back to Kemet, put them on their knees, and have them worship the Black god Amun every day and every night of their life, and then send them back to their lands in terror. Because the idea was, if we terrify them, because they don't have morality, but if they see this black face and we say, this is God, this is who you worship, and if you don't, and then you sever a few heads, they live in terror that when they see Black people, they will see God. And because they see God, it will be more difficult for them to assassinate or destroy or pillage or commit genocide against our people. Now, a lot of our people say, well, obviously it didn't work because look at what has happened since then. I wouldn't look at it that way. The God that he made them worship at that time was called Amun. And if you think right now, at the end of our prayers in Christianity, say, our Father which art in heaven, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. At the end, we say Amen. At the end of the Muslim prayer, they say Amin. At the end of the Jewish prayer, they say Amin. Where does all of this come from? It comes from, honestly, it was act of righteous terrorism, though. It was indoctrination. We always say as Black people, they indoctrinated us to worship the white God. You know, we wouldn't do that to them. I thought that too. Not true. We the ones that started it. But we did it for a different reason. We didn't do it because we needed something they had or were trying to take from them. We did it because we were sick of them coming in here and thinking that Black life didn't have value. And we realized these people don't have the same morals that we have. We can't make them be moral. What we can do, though, we can terrify them to know if you don't act civilized around us, we're going to chop your head off. And so that's what we did. And so he gives me great inspiration because it unleashes me from that notion that to be spiritual, or somehow you, in order to be spiritual, you can't see the destruction of your enemies in that picture. And it's the exact opposite. When I see spirituality in Kemet, our enemies were being destroyed. We had God handing the smite over to the Sultan, the king. You couldn't be a good king at a certain period if you wouldn't protect the kingdom. And that meant going to war with the enemies and the threats to our people. So I think I will end it right there, land it right there.
Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question concerning your title, Irritated Genie. I was listening to a lecture the other day that you did where you revealed that, and I wasn't familiar with that particular literature, so I definitely was going to ask some questions concerning that, but you covered it. So if anybody is interested, like you said, the book is now available in English, so they can check that out as well.
The Irritated Genie by Jacob Carruthers. And Irritated Genie means the angry spirit. They said that the Haitian period, the people in Haiti were asked, how did you defeat the greatest armies of the world at that time? They said we had the angry spirit. We were possessed by the angry spirit against tyranny to fight slavery and tyranny. And that spirit embodied us. And that's how we defeated them, with that spirit.
Indeed. Yeah, we got a little delay, but the sound, the audio is on point. So we're gonna carry on with it. And get into the meat of the topic a little bit. Again, with the thing that it's a difficult topic. I'm not gonna, play around as if it's not, but when we start talking about the fact that according to their statistics, is 1 out of every 6 of our boys under the age of 18, before the age of 18, rather, has been violated sexually. And 1 out of every 4 of our girls before the age of 18 has been violated. I recall when I was in high school, middle school, originally, the statistics was saying 1 out of every 5. Now they're saying 1 out of every 4 of our girls have been violated in that manner. So with me, again, I'm looking at in different places, like I'm at the mall or I'm at a restaurant, or maybe a fast food place. I'm seeing like girls who are in the 6th and 7th grade holding hands and kissing and things like that. I never experienced that, as a youth, whether we're talking even in high school. I don't recall seeing any. I know for a fact I never experienced anything like that. So to see our young women and young men um, expressing these type of things, we know predominantly when you can't even look at a movie or a television show nowadays without seeing what they call same-sex relationships. And again, when we were growing up, yeah, we knew that existed, but it wasn't being put in our faces like that. I could go to a movie and never see it, but now it's like when when you view a film or you're watching television, it's like it's intentional. I never dreamed that there would be a day where they would have drag queens coming in to read books to our children. I never dreamed that it would be acceptable in our communities or neighborhoods, if you will. So it's still a shock every time, I see things like that. It's almost unbelievable. But being that, with me being a female, I've multiple times. I think we lose a brother? What happened? It's been multiple times where, as women, we have those discussions, right? So I'm gonna send it back to him. I don't know what happened. Let me see. Send an invite back to him. Get the brother back in here. But as women, we have these discussions. I've had these type of discussions with my mom, peace be upon her, with my godmothers, and it seems to be a reoccurring thing. This type of abuse that's been happening generation after generation after generation. So again, these are discussions that we definitely have to have. And for me, what I'm seeing is it has a lot to do with the fact of not just our children being exploited, but them accepting that type of lifestyle as if it's something that's natural, when we all know that is not, right? It goes against the grain of nature. So with, again, not just our children, but it seems to be a lot of our women are partaking in this type of behavior. And the factor remains, well, the number one factor that's always a topic again is this sexual abuse that has taken place generation after generation. I literally have friends who not only did their uncle or great uncle violate them, but come to find out he did the same thing to their fathers or their mothers, right? And my question always is, well, why wasn't it handled back then when it was done to your uncle or your mother? Nobody ever spoke out. And a lot of times our the parents and the fathers and the mothers who were abused by the same uncle or great uncle spoke out. They said something to their mother or their grandmother, and they were always hushed about it, right? There's only 2 situations that I know of where the pedophile was held accountable, right? And I'm from Detroit, coming from where I'm from, when I say held accountable, I'm not talking about by way of the state of Michigan or the county of Wayne or the city of Detroit. I'm talking about by way of street justice, right? And I'm not going to even say unfortunately after I say that, because 9 times out of 10, if you find someone who is that mentally unstable where they will violate a child, you find someone who has done that on multiple occasions, not just once, right? So I don't feel, I don't have any sympathy for those 2 situations that I know of. The most recent situation is a guy, and I could tell you what his first name was. His first name was Michael. And this was a very attractive young man. I was around him as a child, but not ever alone, right? So I'm not a victim or survivor of any of his debauchery, so to speak, right? Or him violating children. But to my understanding, it wasn't the one 13-year-old who stepped up and told, her brothers and her father what this man had done to her. And again, she was not the only one who he violated in that manner. So when he came up deceased, as far as Detroit police, there wasn't one family or one particular individual who they could point at and say, well, we're going to kidnap you and hold you for ransom because you're the one who took him up out of here, right? When finally justice was given, there were so many other families that stepped up to say, or so many other young women who stepped up to say, well, when I was 13, he did this, or when I was 12 years old, just everybody had a story after the fact. But then at the same time, there were so many people at his wake and his services and his repast, celebrating his life. So it was like a double-edged sword, so to speak. Although, again, justice was given, in my eyes, right, for the violations that he committed, but there were so many people who were aware of his activity, but still, loved him. I'm gonna just say what it is. And I'm not just talking about his mother and his brothers and sisters, because actually this guy was an only child, right? And he came from a mother who was an alcoholic, right? So I just, us putting the pieces of the puzzles together, because again, this is maybe about 10 years ago that this happened. So I was a full grown adult. So to find out that he was violating children in this manner, and me knowing him since I was like maybe 5 or 6 years old, it was knowing of him. I'm not going to say personally or whatever. I knew him, knew of him. I knew of his mother. I knew she had problems with substance abuse as well as alcoholism or whatnot. But still, with him being this handsome man, it was a surprise. I'll just put it that way. As I, have memories of seeing him as a child. He always dressed very nice. Again, he was the only child. So in that way, his mother, spoiled him or whatnot. But come to find out, with his mother, again, having substance abuse issues as well as dealing with alcoholism, come to find out it was some of her female friends, not her male friends, who had taken advantage of him as a child, right, on multiple occasions. And I'm not, it's no excuse for it. Again, any full grown adult who takes advantage of a child in that manner, or really in any other manner, needs to be dealt with within our community. We don't have to necessarily involve the state of wherever you're at, the county of wherever you reside at or domicile at, as well as the city. And again, Detroit is a bit different. I've been other places. I've lived other places. And, in the 80s and the 90s, when I was growing up, because a lot of things have changed here, someone who has violated a child, if people taking it to their own hands and keep it to themselves, so to speak, we're not running around saying such and such father or brother did this, that, and the third, the police will let it go, right? They didn't do their job. Had they done their job a lot of times, or again, let me go back to some of my friends or some of the young women who I grew up with who were violated by way of an uncle or a great uncle. And once they come out and tell their mother, they find out that same great uncle did the same thing to their mother. So within these, I've been privy to a lot of these conversations, because again, if this is happening to 1 in every 4 of our girls before the age of 18, we have to realize that these are conversations that we have. But when you have grandmothers and grandfathers, or even mothers in some cases, who believe in, we're going to take this to Rem Pork Chop or Pastor Pimpin and handle it from there. And or grandma tells you, well, we're not going to talk. Don't repeat that. Don't ever repeat that again. The psychological damage that's done. He's trying to get back in. Uh-oh. Okay. But the psychological damage that's done and the trauma, being a survivor of sexual abuse, like, we need therapy. We definitely need therapy. And unfortunately, in our communities and neighborhoods, that's, almost taboo, right? When essentially it's needed. It's very much needed. Again, if 1 in every 6, and y'all have heard me talk about this on this channel multiple times, if 1 in every 6 of our sons are violated in that manner before the age of 18, and more than 75% of them don't even say anything to anyone about it, then you have a small percentage that within a year or two may mention it. Let's say, again, they take it to grandma, and grandma say, well, we're going to take it to Pastor Pimpin or Rem Pork Chop. And let's say Rem Pork Chop is the parasite and a lot of times we know these things happen, and it's not just in Catholicism or with the Catholic Church, right? This happens within the Baptists and the Jehovah Witness and the Seventh-day Adventists, name them. This happens a lot of times because these are the individuals that get away with it. And especially a lot of times people will bring up the Catholic Church due to the fact, okay, we got brother back, due to the fact that these priests and or whatnot, they use what's called the ecclesiastical clause in order to not be prosecuted for these types of crimes. Okay, we got you back in, bro. I was just speaking about the Catholic Church and how, Father John and this priest and that priest, they use that ecclesiastical clause. And, a lot of people wonder, well, why they never get prosecuted for these crimes. Again, these people are, I can talk about it being a bloodline or whatnot, but again, that ecclesiastical clause within these courts, whether we're talking about state court or federal court, holds weight, and it stops them from being prosecuted. Okay. Can you hear me, Irritated Genie? Yeah. Are you familiar with the ecclesiastical clause?
What in the world?
Okay. I don't know if
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear you.
Uh-oh. Let's see.
Let me see.
Okay. What about now? Still can't hear me? I don't know. I'm not muted over here, so I don't know.
Yeah. All right.
You might need to go out and come back in. Let's see. Take you out and bring you back in. Okay, what about now? Still can't hear me? Let's see. I don't know. I don't know what the issue. I don't understand why I would have an issue with the audio at this point. We can hear you. We can hear you though. I don't know why it's not letting you hear us. He's saying he can't hear us. No, I'm not.
Okay, so you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't hear you. I was hearing you before, but I can't hear you now. Hmm.
Our apologies, relatives. We gonna get it together. I don't know why it's not allowing him to hear me, but I'm good with that. As long as you all can hear him, y'all hear me every week. Is but we want to get it together, so I'm gonna resend a link and see if maybe that'll help.
I don't know what's happening. I apologize. I think this is on my side for sure. I may be having, it might be my computer, it might be the system. I apologize. I think I'm having some kind of, you know what? If you want to do that and send it to me one more time and I can come in and see if it'll work with another link, I'll try it. And, okay, I see a new link. Let me go ahead and try this one now.
All right, so hopefully that fixes the issue when he comes back in, so you guys can hear both of us. But again, y'all hear me all the time, so you know what I'm saying. We're here to hear the good brother. And overall, out of all of the brothers and sisters within what we have labeled as the conscious community, he is the expert on this particular topic. So let's see. Hopefully this works out. Bam. Send it to him again. So yeah, like I said, this is a topic that a lot of people in our community shy away from, but something that we definitely need to be discussing, because it's the very reason that our children. Okay, good. Said you can hear both of us. That's what's up. Y'all know when I get in my mood, I'll say it in a different way, but I'm trying to be respectful and stop this. So I apologize. My computer is having major problems. If you would like to, I could come through to do a phone program. Boom, boom, boom. All right, let's see if we can get him on the phone. Matter of fact, just pull this down, see what happens. He say he's having issues with his computer, so I'm gonna hit him up on Messenger right quick. Um, shit, it's not even letting me. I'm in Facebook jail, y'all. So let's see.
Yes, ma'am.
Hotep, Hotep. Okay. Well, the viewers were saying that, yeah, that they can hear both of us. I'm getting messages now.
Okay, this is what I can do. If you want to, I can do it either two ways. I can come in through my phone, and I think it looks just as good, and we can go ahead and go as long as you want. Or, and I apologize. I can go ahead and refund you because I wouldn't charge you for this because this is definitely on my side. But I can come in through my phone if you want me to try that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. It should work through your phone. It shouldn't be an issue. Hopefully.
I think you let me know when I come in if it picks up well and if it looks good and if it sounds good. And if so, then we'll go ahead.
Okay. Y'all know how they do. When it's something good, boy, y'all know how it be. And I don't like to try always blame things on, their technology or whatnot. Okay.
All right. How's that?
All right. So you can hear me now, right?
I can hear you fantastic. And I apologize
Okay.
to everybody. I apologize.
Okay. Yep. I'm talking about the ecclesiastical clause that the Catholic priests use, when they violate the little boys or whatnot, and how, they've been doing this for centuries or whatnot, but they don't ever seem to go to prison for it. They're never prosecuted for it.
So if I can, let me see if I can jump in. We when we talk about Catholicism, when we actually look at the history of pedophilia, and if I can tell a little bit about the history of how I got here, so maybe it'll help people get a better understanding of where I'm coming from with the discussion. When I was 15 years old, there was a sister that I knew. She was like my best friend at the time. I was in a boarding school, so I was from Washington D.C. and I came from an all black environment. Loved it. It was rough. It was kind of rough. These dudes around here was a little problem, D.C. But the culture, there was a culture and there was a sense of blackness. We had Marion Barry was the mayor, so we had a sense of blackness. I had no idea that there was an epidemic, the chief social ill really in the world, but definitely in the black community, but really in the world, was child sexual abuse. Because where I grew up, there was the kind of tough guys that, and I didn't know everything all of them did, but it was the kind of guys that literally, if they heard that somebody raped a child, they would go kill the person. Like, it was just that kind of aggressive manhood in our community. You just felt like, nah, you don't mess with no children. We never talked about it. It was just something like, nah, don't mess with no kids. That's how we just said, don't mess with no kids. So when I went there to Massachusetts, the sister told me at 15, we were good friends. She told me that she had been sexually accosted by, I think it was a family member in Jamaica when she was very young. And she told me she had never told anyone, and but she was telling me because we were such good friends. And man, that was the worst. Oh man. I remember we were sitting on the steps and we had our little houses where we had our rooms there. And we were sitting on the steps together. And I was sitting there. And she told me that story. And oh man. All I could think of in my mind was, I'm gonna kill this guy, man. How can somebody do this? And it's somebody I know. And I'm like, why would a person do that? That sounded like, in my mind, we used to have this thing called the Bunny Man in DC. Don't go into the woods, stay
stay close to your parents because you don't want the bunny man to get you. You know, it's like it was this scary thing. You know, people in the woods will take you in the woods and do bad things to you. We didn't know what that meant, but we were scared of the bunny man. I didn't really know. We were 15 years old. I didn't know that the world operated like that. So after she told me that, something opened up in me. And from the time I was 15 to about 18, I had all of these black women telling me that they had been sexually abused. I'm talking about, God, man, that's Jamaica. We had Boston, DC, Maryland, Detroit. Because I started meeting women from all over. And when I went to college, it was, by the time I got to college, I already knew that it was so bad that I could almost look at a woman and then I just ask her, or just tell her it was okay, and began to try to, you know, talk about it. And I knew I started to notice that when you let sisters know that you don't agree with that and that it's wrong and you think bad things should happen to somebody who did that, they actually appreciated hearing that somebody cared. And I was like, wow. And I was thinking to myself, how is it doesn't matter what city I'm talking about? When I talk to sisters, like it got to the point where I met, to this day in my life, I would say I've met more women who've been sexually abused than that haven't. It's well over 50% in my estimation of the women I've met in the world. I've met ones that have never had that happen to them, but the majority have had it happen. And I can almost tell now without asking, but you know, because of my experience, it got to a point where women would just volunteer it and tell me. So my point being with that, when I met the brothers in Positive Comedic Vision, which is an organization I joined when I was in college, they were talking about sexual abuse in the black community too. And so that's what really gravitated me towards these brothers. They were strong brothers. They weren't like a bunch of intellectuals. They were brilliant, but they weren't a bunch of, you know, nerds. They were like some fighting dudes, but they was like, we got to do something about this. I was like, yeah, we got to do something about this. I had no idea the international magnitude of it. At any rate, when we started doing lectures to talk about it, I had to do research to figure out, you know, what is this sexual abuse? And then the internet was kind of new. Like it was new. I remember I was in my job. I worked for the Department of Navy. I was a contract specialist. So I got out of college, couldn't get a job, got one with the government, and I was doing contracting work, helping people, you know, helping do contracts at the Department of Navy on at Navy Yard in Washington, D.C. So I'm there working, and I'm doing what we do on the side, but in my job, I'm just there looking like a regular brother that has a nice job, trying to, you know, enjoy the job. So I said, I'm going to use this thing called the internet, because it was kind of new. And they said, you can look stuff on it and do some research. So I said, let me do some research. This is before I did my book. This was like in 95 or 96. I was trying to figure out, we're going to talk about pedophilia. When I go talk to people, let me just go do a little research so I can have a little background and hit people with it. This was before the PowerPoint. This was just, we were just taping them on audio tapes. And say, let me just talk to the people and let them know. And I never forget, man. I'll never forget. I was 21 years old, maybe 22, 21, maybe 21, 22, something like that. And I'm there doing research on, no, I'm about 22, about 21 to 22, something like that, on pedophilia. I'm thinking because all of the stories I was hearing was brothers in our community, they're not my brothers, but black guys raping these girls. I'm thinking it's going to come up, in my mind it's black because it's always black the people are telling me. And I never forget, it blew me out the water. Two things popped up that really knocked me off my socks. The first thing was NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association. And I was like, what? I was like, how can you... I'm sorry.
I was just saying, that's crazy. That is just crazy.
Yeah, it's called NAMBLA, North American Man-Boy Love Association. So I'm like, there's an actual, when you say organization, that means that there are people there, they pay some dues, they have rules and regulations. I'm like, yo, like I'm a black brother. I'm from DC. At least back when I grew up, I thought it meant this, but like we wasn't with none of that, funny stuff. Like, we like women, like we like some sisters, man. We was chasing as many of them we could find. So the idea that one, that you wouldn't want a woman, but then that you would let people know, but worst of all, that you would be going after a child, that was so foreign to my psychology. It was so foreign to me. This is how bad it bothered me. I thought I was going to get locked up because I was like, I'm reading this, and if somebody looks and sees that I'm reading this, they're going to think that I'm part of something like this, because I wanted to go report it and say, man, we got to report these people, get them locked up. Maybe we can get some brothers together and go lock them all up. But at the same time, I was like, well, I don't even know where they are. And I don't even know if it's illegal to have it. I just, my point being, I was totally blown away with the notion that there was an active organization bragging about men wanting little boys. Then when I started looking for the history of it is when I really was like, I was mortified. I thought I was going to find something, people, in the woods in America, maybe slavery, somebody raped. Yeah, I thought it was going to be something weird, kind of, some weird stuff, I looked and they started talking about ancient Greece, the love affair between Zeus and Ganymede. And I was like, what? Well, I was like, that's not possible. You can't have a god. And when they talked about Zeus, they called him a philandering husband. They talked about the fact that he had, he dealt with women, he dealt with men, he dealt with animals, but his favorite love was Ganymede. Like that, people don't understand. You hear Romeo and Juliet, that's after they got introduced to African people. I'm just telling the history of it. I'm just being honest. Before the European got introduced to Kemet, the culture of Europe, I want people to hear what I'm saying. When you go and see these statues, think about it. All of the Greco-Roman statues, Greece or Rome, is some dudes laying on top of some other dudes, and they got some like they naked, but then they have like a blanket or something, and it's dudes all laying over top of each other. And I always used to look at this stuff and say, this stuff looks weird. I didn't understand it, and it looked kind of fruity to me, but I was like, I don't know, maybe that's just Greece. Maybe I'm not that sophisticated, but it don't look right to me. I wouldn't have wanted to be there. But when I read that this was the culture and that his greatest love was young Ganymede, and that he transitioned himself into an eagle, flew down to Mount Olympus, kidnapped Ganymede, took him to Mount Olympus, repeatedly sodomized him, and turned him into his lover. To me, I was like, yo, wait a minute, wait. If you sodomizing a child, that ain't love. Like, that ain't love. He don't love you. You were violating him. I was like, yo. So it took me a while to realize that I wasn't living in the world that I thought I was living in. Like, I thought everybody, no matter what race, found abusing children to be abhorrent and that a person should get the death penalty. Like, I thought that then, I still feel that way. Nobody told me that. It's just my natural inclination to think, you don't mess with a child. You do something like that, you should get capital punishment. That should be the penalty. In a million years, I could not imagine that, not even on paper, that there was a culture where the idea that a woman is for reproduction, but true love is found through the anus of a little boy. I'm not trying to be vulgar. I'm just saying, like even when I articulate it now, I'm just being honest with you. It's so foreign to me, even though I've been studying it for years. I mean, that's 1996, so that's 30 years? I've been studying it for 30 years, and it still feels foreign to me. It's like, nah, that's not love. But I really had to back up and really listen, because I wanted to argue with what I was seeing, because I didn't want it to be real. And so I'm glad somebody said Plato, because that's exactly where I was going. What really told me, whoa, I said, whoa, wait a minute. There's some stuff going on here. what's happening in the black community, this isn't something that comes from us. This is a cultural reality that came from our interaction with people whose culture this is. When it really told me that, because see, when you talked about Zeus, when I talk about Zeus and Ganymede, we're talking about their gods. So those are myths. But when we talk about Plato, this is who they consider their greatest intellectual. This is the greatest mind of our race. And he taught us who we were. Plato, in his what they call his great writing called the Symposium, where he gives the philosophy of essentially white folks in Greece, he says that pederasty, which is a grown man with a little boy, that alone, like, in other words, nothing else, just that, a grown male having a little boy, is capable of satisfying a man's highest and noblest aspirations. And the love between man and woman, when spoken of at all, is altogether inferior. It is a purely physical impulse whose sole object is the procreation of life. When I heard that, I had to totally fall back. Like, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This guy is saying that a man has to have a woman in order to produce children and keep a race going. But that's not a pleasurable thing. I was like, nah, dude, I know for sure it's a pleasurable thing. I don't. But their position was, his position was, and I want people to hear this because I'm going to go into what you were talking about, the Catholic priests. I know it's a long way to get there, but I want people to hear this. The notion that a man supposed to be with a woman and have love, that didn't exist in all of Europe. I want you to hear what I'm saying. They knew that males had females, and some of them might have liked those females or not liked them, but it wasn't love. Like, they didn't have a concept. I want you to hear what I'm saying. Please, let this, like, seep through to you. They didn't have a concept that being in love. Like, when we say, I'm in love with her, that didn't exist. It just didn't exist. The notion of being in love, to satisfy, the word satisfy, a man's highest and noblest aspirations, meaning all you want to be in a man can be satisfied if you go get your little boy. That comes directly out of Plato. I mean, but he was not saying it for him. He was articulating the philosophy of his people. Now, why I bring that up, because you made the point of talking about the Catholicism. What we don't realize, and I didn't know until I studied Baba Kwesi, when he talks about African people, we call the dialectical law of opposites or complements, man and woman. They're two sides. They're the different polar opposites of the same thing. The being, the person. You have the masculine and the feminine, and the far side of this is the feminine. The far side of this is the masculine. You bring them together, kaboom! It's magic. At least that's how we look at it as African people. We had Asar, Aset, and Haru. That was the traditional creation story. Asar, Aset, and Haru. The traditional immaculate conception, where Set kills his twin brother Asar, and he had not given birth. His wife Aset had never given birth, so it looked like it was over. But she went and found his body parts that had been severed and spread throughout the Nile, and she put them back together. And so he loved her so much that she would think about him so much to put his body back together that he came back and impregnated her in spirit, meaning he didn't physically come back. But he was so appreciative that she gave him a proper burial and was so loyal to him even in his physical absence that he impregnated her with a child. So, not to make the story long, but the idea was that the woman is so valuable. If you invest in her, even in your absence, she can, like a copy machine, she can reproduce you even better than yourself if you invest properly in her. So it was a story about the value of the black woman. She is magic. She can take that what you have and through children and feeding them and nurturing them, make it even better tomorrow. And so that son came, Haru, that we get the term hero from, and came and overthrew his evil uncle Set, which was in biblical sense, they got all of this from Africa. In biblical sense, you're talking about Cain and Abel. They get that from Asar and Set. And then Heru would be the Christ, the Koresh, the spirit that rises, the rebirth of his father. He is the rebirth, the spiritual reinconception, because it was a spiritual birth, because there was no physical touching. He impregnated her with his ideas, with his leadership, with his love, with his strength, with his compassion, with his warrior nature, with his fatherhood and all of those things. And so he went out there on the battlefield and defeated his evil uncle. He became the hero, the Haru. That's where we get the term hero from. That would be the Christ figure, the Jesus. So when the Europeans took it, I'm telling that story just to tell you, they took the story, they kept the Asar and Set part when you look at the Bible, talking about Catholicism. So they keep that part. So Cain and Abel is Asar and Set, kill your evil brother. Your evil brother kill you. But what they didn't keep, in our story, the Immaculate Conception was man, Asar, having been slain, but coming back in spirit. The woman, Aset, who takes that spirit and reduplicates it and produces a hero, a child savior, who goes to battle. So in our story, our Jesus, our Haru was a warrior. That's why, if you notice, when we always talk about our ancestors, we always love Nanny of Jamaica, Queen Nzinga, Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad, because he's a fighter. That's part of our natural inclination, our spiritual concepts for thousands of years. We've always been that way. When our Savior comes, they got to fight somebody. And it's going to be trials and tribulation, but they're going to knock somebody upside the head. They're going to lose a lot. They're going to sacrifice. That's just part of the story. But in the end, they're going to conquer evil, and then good's going to come back for some time. Then, of course, evil going to fight back and come back, but good will come back again. Our story was that good will always conquer evil, and it'll be through a warrior. Usually it was a male, but sometimes it was a female. This is our story. When the Europeans took that story, we had man, woman, child. That was our Immaculate Conception. That was our Trinity. They were like, and you heard it in Plato, we like the man part, we like the little boy part, but we don't like this woman being part of the spiritual tradition because, like they said, pederasty alone is capable of satisfying a man's highest and noblest aspirations. And the love between man and woman, when spoken of at all, is altogether inferior. Meaning what? She has no place in the spiritual realm. That's right. Put it up there. That's right. We don't want thank you. We don't want the female to be represented in this process. So that became something that became problematic for them in terms of keeping the story. So they started it. It was God, Mary, mother of God. Remember, they used to talk about Mary back in the day. We're talking about during the time of the Romans. So it was God, Mary, mother of God, and then Jesus, the immaculately conceived child. They were like, we do not want the woman in the Immaculate Conception story. It doesn't suit our culture. So what they did was they said, let's remove the woman and make a story that is better suited to our culture. And so they created God, Jesus, Son of God, and the Holy Ghost, who is what? Another male figure to replace the woman, so that you don't have that balance of man and woman in the spiritual story. So that's just something for us to understand. When we talk about Catholicism, it started there, and then they said, okay, one more piece. And I think this piece will really bring it home for everybody. In Catholicism or the Catholic Church, think about it. They said that now that we have a new story, God, Jesus, Son of God, and the Holy Ghost, we got a three-male Trinity. But how do we allow our culture of pederasty, males with boys, to be maintained as the primary culture, even though we've reshifted it in the spiritual sense? They say, this is what we'll do. We'll create a position called the Catholic priest or the Pope. So you are the Catholic priest, but culturally and by law, because your highest and noblest aspiration is to be with a young boy, you cannot marry a woman or be with a woman, because you're trying to reach your highest and noblest aspiration. So in order to reach your highest point, you can't be dealing with no woman. Why would we even talk about them? Don't even worry about children. Let the other people do that. You got to be very spiritual, meaning reach the highest point of European cultural expression. So you're not going to be with a woman. You're going to be with a male. And Or you're not gonna be the woman at all. And who are Catholic priests known for being with? Little boys. I don't think that I'm saying anything that people wouldn't agree with. So what does that mean? What we're saying is that the Europeans made their religion match their culture. Because all religion is the deification of a people's culture. So they married the culture onto the religion. And so now they had a culture of the molestation of children. So it's part and parcel of Catholicism, based on the new Trinity, where the Father, where the Holy Ghost replaces Mary, Mother of God. Why even if you look at Christian churches today, they never talk about Mary. Why? They removed the woman from the spiritual realm. How does that impact us as African people? Once I learned that, I realized, wow, it is not just that people are molesting children. It's not just that in slavery, these habits of the Europeans were transitioned onto us by virtue of us being under their dominion and control. But we're actually fighting an entire hostile, contrary culture to who we are as people. For us, it's man, woman, child. For them, it's man, little boy. We don't have anything to do with that. That has nothing to do with us, except that we've been drawn and dragged into this reality. And honestly, if we start looking at our current condition, I started talking about this in the 1990s, telling people this is a problem that we have to address. If we don't, it's going to collapse our whole racial construct and structure. If we don't stop the sexual assault on our children, which I say to this day is the premier, most severe social ill on the planet, child sexual abuse. I think I'm very confident in what I'm saying. And that is of all races, but it's definitely doing irreparable damage to us. And it's not just girls, it's boys as well. So we see sexual abuse as a primary driver in the difficulties that black men have getting along with black women, or black women have getting along with black men. The sexual abuse occurs at a very young age, and we become hostile towards one another and confused, and it becomes a problem. I saw that. I said, but it's not just that that's happening. There's a culture trying to force this on us and to accept it. So in the 90s, when I realized what was happening, I became more and more despondent to NWA. Because see, when NWA first came out, I was 15 years old. I was in that same boarding school we were talking about. And I had probably it wasn't a realistic notion of how perfect the black woman was, but I had a very high sense of black women. Almost probably unhealthily high, like they're almost perfect. And they're not perfect. No, none of us are perfect, but I kind of saw black women as that way, being better than all other women and this, that, and the other, and more decent and more self-respect and cleaner and prettier and just better in every way, shape, or form. The black woman was better in the 1990s in my mind. And I never forget listening the first time I heard NWA. The guy said he wanted to listen to this group they call NWA, and I was like, what does that stand for? And when they said N-words with attitudes, it told me something. I was from DC, and it was one of the most, at that time, just being honest, one of the most violent places in the country, quite frankly. I mean, you had some tough cats and some really not good stuff happening. But even in DC, we did not, as a matter of language system, call each other the N-word unless you was ready to fight. It was fighting words. Like, it wasn't, hey, what's up, my N-word? No, we didn't do none of that. But it wasn't none of that. Might have been part of the culture in the West Coast. I found out later it was, and in Detroit, but not in DC. And violence was part of the culture. But even though violence was part of the culture, N-word and accepting that type of use of language wasn't until NWA came out. And I remember when I first heard they called themselves that, I was like, you can't call yourself that. I said, I don't want to hear this. But I remember they played Straight Outta Compton. And again, coming from DC, I'm listening to this. I know all kind of gangster kind of cats, but I was listening to the first song, Straight Outta Compton, and my thing was, yo, this guy's snitching on himself. I didn't realize that it was just music. I'm thinking, well, I came from DC. If you say it, you better do it. Like, it wasn't that kind of climate where you could talk about doing stuff. Where I came from, if you talked and you wasn't living up to it, you was definitely getting punched in the mouth. Like, you was getting, you wasn't no room for talking. You better be about it. So when I heard the music and they said we killing everybody, I'm like, dang, that's messed up that we black people killing each other. But yo, you snitching on yourself. You gonna go to jail, dude. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but at 15, I'm like, yo, he gotta stop saying this. He gonna go to jail. Don't snitch on yourself. But what happened when they played F the Police, being a young black man abused by police, growing up, mistreated, that was one of the happiest moments of my life. And so I forgot how vile the music was. Because talking about standing up as a black man and fighting police brutality, and the way that Ice Cube spoke in that song, it was just so empowering that I ignored that right behind it came Gangsta Gangsta. Was a song where we just killed each other, talking about raping our women, you know, bees and hoes, calling them bees. You know, she was scared. It was shown. We all said F you B and kept going. I'm like, yo, why you, the sister don't want to holler at you? Why you gonna come at her like that? See, back then I was thinking like that. You know, yo, you just gotta have some game, dude. You just gotta try. You sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you don't go and start becoming hostile to a black woman because she doesn't. You know, you gotta give her some game. You gotta holler at her. You know, you gotta talk to her. You gotta keep coming. You gotta be persistent. My point being, the destruction of our culture I saw through NWA. And what I started to see is they're stripping the respect for our women away from us. And in this ultra aggressive, pro-rape, pro-molestation culture, the sexual abuse that I had already just found out about that was going on is going to be much, much worse. And it's going to create like a terrible problem between a relationship between black men and black women, because there's already major issues with all of this sexual abuse. So I saw that and I said, you know what? We got a problem here. But I liked it because I liked what they were saying about police. And I'm gonna go to this, and I'm going somewhere with all of this, because I think I'm trying to hit home to how we get to where we are today and the problems that we're facing. And honestly, I don't think we can have an honest conversation about the sexual abuse in the black community and not talk about NWA. Because NWA, two groups really devastated the culture of black people in America, and now it's gone international. One was NWA, and two was Luke Skywalker. The thing about Luke Skywalker and the 2 Live Crew, though, it was so regional, and to people outside of that region, it was kind of corny. Like, DC would not have ever caught on to that. We didn't like that stuff. Some other places didn't, like New York. It wasn't cool enough. Like, we were cool. We were competing to be cool between DC and New York. That wasn't cool. It was kind of vile. And yeah, we like women, but we didn't want to see them treating themselves like that. Not in the beginning. Now, if you went down to Miami, guys would go and have fun and be able to see all these women. It was different. But if you were just in your culture and community, we had a higher sense of self-respect in this country. When Luke came out, it wasn't a problem as much until NWA came out, because what NWA did, they stripped us of our self-respect, and they allowed us as black men to attack our own women and to feel like that was empowering, destroying the black woman's sense of self-respect, lowering her guard to her sexual security, and opening them up for rabid sexual abuse and sexual exploitation and mistreatment. So then when Luke came and became popular, we had already lost self-respect. So now it's okay for our women to get up there and be naked and be strippers. Like, that's an actual occupation that we think is a legitimate occupation. Before, a woman had to go through trials and tribulations. We knew that's why she was in the strip club. She had a hard life being young. They transitioned it through culture via musical expression to legitimizing the rape of our women and the brutality of our women and the justifying of sexual immorality or looseness. And they really have cracked what the definition of black people was in the 80s to what it is today. If you go look in 1985 and look at Donahue or one of these television programs, look at black people back then. We were dressed decently. We might have had a lot of straight hair, but nevertheless, we wanted to look good. We were wearing shoes and decent pair of slacks, and or even if we were dressing cultural, we wanted to look clean. We always had our haircuts done. We would never wear our pants off our behinds, showing our behinds. I remember Eazy-E in what was that song? He was in jail. Easy Does It. And he was talking about why he was in jail, and he said, the woman asked him, why do you wear your pants like that? And he's wearing his pants hanging off his behind, and he's in prison. And I never forget, he said, for easy access, baby. Now he's in prison in the video. He's behind bars, holding the bars. So he's glorifying being incarcerated. Like being enslaved now is something you brag about. Hey, I was a slave. Guess what plantation I was on? And so he's glorifying it, but he's in prison with his pants down. And the woman asked him, and remember, if you want to say something, you got to hit your thing because you muted, so I'm not hearing you. But she says, why you wear your pants like that? He said, for easy access, baby. Many of us think he talking about a woman, but he ain't got no women. He in jail. He's in jail, so you don't have no women. So why you got your pants hanging down with your butt showing? I'm saying that to say we weren't paying attention enough, because through so-called gangster rap, we call it gangster rap, but how gangster was it really? If we really think about it hard, think of how many of those guys from that time, even in that group, have come out, we now know was into the other side of stuff. Dr. Dre, I'm not saying it, I'm not Tupac, I'm not Suge Knight. They came out and put this stuff out. I didn't put this stuff out there. I mean, I'm not talking about anything personal. This is public information that people came out and shared. Here you have people, some of these guys that do stuff with guys, creating a culture of music, calling our women bees and hoes, and calling black men N-words, saying we should kill each other. It's not even straight men. I mean, maybe some of them are straight, but if we really look at it, who are these guys that are making beats and music culture to justify the violation of children? I never forget, and I'm honing on this because I think it's relevant to today. The music is not any different. All we're listening to is NWA 2.0. It's just an extension of everything R&B, everything hip hop, everything jazz, everything. It's just an extension of NWA 2.0, which is the basic themes are have no self-respect, hate women, rape women, and dudes can be with dudes. They didn't say it, well, they did. Even if you look at Eazy-E's song when they were talking about robbing a bank, and all of a sudden he talked about it was a tranny there. Now he shoots the tranny, but still, like he injected this transsexual thing into the thing. Like, dude, first of all, why you talking about you want to rape a woman? You robbing a bank, get the loot and go. You got money now, you can holler at the women because you got money. No, you want to talk about you want to rape a woman. Do we understand how many people are affected by that? If we look at somebody like who told their story, again, I'm not telling a story that's not being told, Gabrielle Union. From what I understand, she was a young lady working in McDonald's. She's a pretty woman. Some dudes robbed the McDonald's, but instead of taking the money and leaving, they rape her. Now we see her so damaged that she gets with dude, he fruity as a cocktail, but then she don't just get him off, she get the son, advising the son that he gonna be a girl. So now we can go right back to that song with Eazy-E, Unbutton Your Bra, the biggest thing I ever saw. You know, and so now we see somebody talking about rape. So rape in a bank, well, this is a restaurant, it's the same idea. You're glorifying that. Now it happened to the young lady. Why are you glorifying that? You can make a song about whatever you want it to be about. Why would you do that? And we don't hold ourselves accountable As black men, I'm not even blaming NWA. I'm gonna be honest. It's my fault. Why did I let that happen? I'm calling myself a man. Why did I let that happen? Why did I sit there? I don't care if I was 15 or not. Why did I sit there and listen to this stuff into my 20s and not be on a bullhorn saying this is garbage? We're killing ourselves. No matter what the wave of black male consensus was, I should have been man enough to do it. And I always think about that. I criticize myself. I'm not saying how successful I'd have been, but I tell you what, we failed as men. And we're failing now because I want everybody to think about it. Because it goes right to the Catholic Church. What's the difference between the black community, between the Catholic Church and hip hop? The only difference is in the Catholic Church, them children don't get paid to do it. And that might not even be true too, because I'm sure the priest gives them a lollipop or a couple of dollars to do it. Just like Eddie Long probably gave him some dollars to do it. I remember the young brother that was molested by Eddie Long. He said he remembers not being able to take enough showers to get the smell of Eddie Long off of him. So you got these individuals, whether in the hip hop culture, the music entertainment culture, or the church culture, the Eddie Longs, the TD Snakes, all of this stuff. We got all these fruitcakes giving all this money, torching the backsides of our sons and daughters. But right now, and I'm not saying that the molestation of our daughters is not happening. It is. But I think if you're looking at the hip hop culture, all of these guys now, there was a time when, yes, I'm talking about how NWA ushered in the homosexual culture in our music. They really did. We didn't look at it that way, but they really did, because they ushered in self-hatred, the murder of black people one onto the other, and the disrespect for black women, and the hatred for black women, which is part of homosexual culture, hatred of women. We just talked about Plato saying that, a woman, when she's there at all, the whole reason she's there, when spoken of at all, is altogether inferior. So I'm saying this to say, if we're talking about, when I was talking about the Catholic Church and how they molested children and boys and how that was their highest and noblest aspiration, if you really think about it, when you get the culture now between Sean Combs and R. Kelly, remember, yes, R. Kelly deals with women, but let's be honest about it. He liked dealing with little girls. And if we're honest with ourselves, little girls at certain ages, before they develop, are shaped and built a lot like boys. And even when you saw the special on him, they said he dealt with boys too. So we're looking at a Catholicism kind of culture. And then if you look directly at who financed the hip hop industry, which I'm not going to talk about because we don't want to get you banned off, get your thing pulled down. But if we look at who actually finances all of this music, they're not black. And that's the culture that promotes this same behavior. Honestly, I'm going to say Catholic because they'll leave this one up if I say Catholic. Really, if we look at it as black people, and I'm just being honest, we have become a Catholic culture. And I don't mean Catholic in terms of religion. I'm talking about we have become a homophile culture, gay and pedophilic. I hate to say it that way. It hurts my feelings. I'm so disturbed because, again, I know I'm living in the past, but growing up, I felt like as black people in D.C. particularly, but just period in this whole country, we were the furthest thing away from that. We were the most masculine. I want a woman. Our biggest issue, we wanted too many of them. We couldn't hold it down to just being reasonable. We just love us some women, man. We love us some black women. And now it's not a world like that. It's a world of a lot of violation and abuse to women. It's a lot of, and I'll admit, in terms of my own self, in terms of growing up in that culture, over-sexualization of women. I'm not saying that men and women don't have an attraction, but the over-sexualization of women, I'll say I've been very much a victim and a perpetrator of that personality because I grew up in it. And so it's taken years for me to pull back and realize how much of a sickness it can be. But certainly the rape and molestation, I've always abhorred that, but it's become part of Black culture, even to the point of we're talking about the physical abuse of children. But if we're honest with ourselves, what we're pushing off and passing off is music now. We call it music. This stuff is not music. It's child pornography. If you put on some Cardi B or some Megan, sister calling herself a stallion, or any of these Black male rappers or female rappers, any of it, or the R&B, you're listening to child pornography. It's just on wax. I mean, literally, we're molesting the minds of children with playing this stuff that we push off as music. I call it death noise. That's all it is. It's another term we use with who creates it, but I'm gonna just leave it at that. It's death noise. It's noise designed to destroy our people with a good beat, a fancy beat, and all it tells you, Black woman, you should have no value, and it's okay for people to molest you. In fact, don't even fight it anymore, because you're not gonna be able to. Just pretend like you enjoy it and give yourself to everybody so it don't hurt as much. If you say you want to do it and you enjoy it, it can hurt less because you're not sitting there toiling with the fact that somebody forced you to do it. And while you at it, write on yourself. And again, I'm not beating on brothers and sisters for tattoos. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not better than thou or anything of that nature. But I will say this. When I was growing up, Black women in D.C. were ridiculous. They would not, it could be a Saturday afternoon just to go take a piece of mail out of a box or something. They had high heels, they had their hair done, they had their clothes off. Like, she didn't want a blemish on her skin. Like, we were people that, like, man, my man Corky, I know I'm talking a little, I'm going here and there, but my man Corky, I'm not even exaggerating. He carried a toothpaste around with him and a toothbrush. Because he had his, he always wore, his family had a little bit of money. He always had New Balance. And if anything happened to his white walls, first of all, he's going to punch you in the face. But secondly, he got to take the toothbrush out and the toothpaste and clean his white walls on his shoes because he always wanted to be fresh. We really cared about how we looked. We would never write on ourselves. That wasn't who we were. The only people when I was growing up there, and again, I'm not beating up on anybody. I'm just saying the only people who had tattoos were white bikers. And honestly, gay dudes in prison. Like there was no woman was wearing no, I never knew a woman in my whole youth, ever, one woman that had a tattoo. I never saw one. Until I think Tupac and then Allen Iverson. Then we start seeing it. But why am I saying it? Because Tupac was one person before prison. When he comes out thug life and the tattoos and stuff, I'm just saying this, and again, I'm not beating up people on tattoos, but I just want us to understand. He didn't go and find his knowledge of self, which he already has some knowledge of self, and then come out and tattoo something that was showing he's had a great experience to become a better person. He felt betrayed by Black women, got locked up for what he felt like wasn't, a crime that he committed, and people turned their back on him. And that experience and pain of that experience, all of a sudden now tattooing his body became something popular. I'm saying that to say this whole culture of us in the Western Hemisphere tattooing ourselves, we're not honest with ourselves. It in no way, shape, or form comes out of anything productive or progressive as African people. It just doesn't. It comes out of abuse, incarceration, rape, slavery. I mean, it's the same thing the whites would do when they had us enslaved. They would take a brand and brand us as property, and you would know what plantation somebody was on from the branding. Again, I'm not beating people up. I'm just saying nobody has the courage to say this to our people. Because it's so. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't want to cut your wisdom, but it's like the brothers and sisters today who wear the locks. Like originally back in 94, 95, when I was locking my hair, It wasn't a lot of people with locks, especially our women. But what I began to notice is I wasn't getting no play. The only people who were complimenting me for locking my hair was the pale people at work. The brothers and sisters and my mother and my family, they had a whole nother like, why you doing that to your hair? You know, you got good hair, all of this kind of stuff. So that didn't affect me. What affected me was the fact that I noticed that I wasn't getting the attention from the brothers. So I stopped locking my hair at that point. And it's like now, you know, everybody locks their hair, whether they have knowledge of self or not. And most of the people who have locks, they don't have any knowledge of self. So they're doing it based off of it being a fad and a popularity. And it's the same thing with the tattoos. Like currently, I don't have any tattoos, right? But we know that that is something when we look at ancient America and we start talking about the Olmecs and you know, the original melanated people of the land. They had tattoos, but that's not why the brothers and sisters are getting tattoos now. They're getting the tattoos because it's something that's popular, right? So I feel you. It's just a measure as to where I want to point out the fact that you people, you and I age, when we see tattoos, the first thing we think about is the heavy metal artists, and it was more white people when we were in high school and middle school who had tattoos or whatnot. It wasn't us. But again, that is another portrait of them stealing our stuff, right? And when we start doing it, we don't know the history of it. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, it goes back to maybe Tupac. So we got Ja Rule, people like that who try to imitate him, and it becomes a fad. So we get into it without checking the history of where it actually come from. So I just wanted to put that tidbit out there because I know it's going to be brothers and sisters to say, well, the tats come from us. Well, the locks come from us too, but that's not why the brothers and sisters are wearing locks today. They're wearing the locks because their favorite rapper has locks, or what they call dreads, which we know don't have nothing to do with locks. That has to do with Selassie, Haile Selassie, and when you say dread, you're not necessarily saying a lock of the hair. So they don't even know that much to even know to call it locks over to call it dread. So I'm riding with you. I just wanted to put that out there.
And let me say this, and it won't be contentious. I just want to say this because I don't want to lose the point in here. Definitely, if we're talking about marking the body in any type of way, it's clearly African. Like you can see in Sudan, they have certain marks. But let me just say, to be clear about what we're looking at today, what we're doing today does not have as much a historical connection with Africa as it does with the Hyksos and the Hittites. The reason I say that, here's the difference. The body markings of African people historically, first of all, you couldn't mark yourself. You weren't writing on yourself. You went through a rite of passage. And once you successfully completed, you were marked identically to everybody else. Meaning what? If it's in Sudan, you see they have 3 or 4 of the markings cut across the forehead. Everybody has the exact same markings, which means what? Which means in that culture, a woman knows if he asks me to marry him, I can marry him because he is a man. How do I know? Look at his forehead. He is a man. I know what he went through. I was trained and taught that if a man has these things, that we can marry those men because they have been trained to be men. They will take care of us and provide for us. So those are the kind of things that would be associated with if we wanted to associate body marking. But you couldn't draw something on your body. You couldn't determine what went and where it went and who did it. It didn't work like that. We've never had a process like that, or at least I'm not familiar with it. Our process was rites of passage. What we saw and here, what we see here with people tattooing themselves, and again, I'm not beating brothers and sisters up. I'm making a point though. There's a reason I'm making this point. Because the poisons that we've been given here, I've seen people say, yeah, see, twerking comes from Africa. No, it does not. African dance and shaking the body comes from Africa. If you know how to see and don't get lost, kind of like my sister said, I'm going to go ahead and rubber stamp what you said because That's the exact same experience I had. When I was growing up, if you had locks, we made fun of you when you weren't there because we thought it was funny looking. But when you came around, we straightened up because we naturally assumed this person real serious. They got a lot of knowledge and they're going to be spitting some game to us and some knowledge, so we have to respect them. We had a lot of respect for people who had locks. What they have done, they first fought these cultural expressions that we had. Then once NWA came out, and there was, but Public Enemy was out at the same time, a war ensued. Black liberation versus black degeneracy. And it was dangerous because with Public Enemy, X-Clan, Brand Nubian, the consciousness, there was a whole spirit of Panthers revisited through consciousness with Doc Ben and Dr. Clark and the other brothers, Baba Kwesi, and these people going around, Dr. Welsing, going lecturing in the colleges. The African consciousness started going into a positive direction. So everything that represented that African rebellion to European dominance, they said, we got to do something about this. Even the music, you saw Ice Cube go to Public Enemy and it started going into a revolutionary direction. They said, pull the plug. Everything pro-black, pull it. There's no pro-blackness. We'll pull all of that, put the money on frivolous spending, put the money on sexuality and exploitation of women, put the money on criminal behavior and doing drugs, put the money on black self-destruction and killing each other. Take anything like locks and now start letting the people who are involved in alternative lifestyles get involved in that. Why? Because now we're going to deculturalize them by taking the things that have value and are symbols of black self-awareness and associating it with behavior that they hate. So they got to have one or the other. Either they hate the locks, or if they accept the locks, they're going to accept the fruitcake behavior with it too. I remember it definitively because I remember telling people this. It was in the late 90s or early 2000s. When I grew up, if you had locks, I was like, yo, I respect that person. That person's serious. I instantly gave you legitimacy just because you had locks. By the 2000, it was at the point, if I saw you with locks, I was like, nah, that dude's fruitcake. Don't come around me with locks. I remember in my lifetime, the transition happening. I was like, this is crazy. I used to respect people with locks. It got to, it's not like that now. I can't tell now. It's like up in the air. But I got to a point where if you had locks, now you ain't talking to me, Slim. I'm going to keep it moving. Because I know you're a fruitcake. And it's like, but that was intentional. And so I'm saying that to say, this is the design that they did. Like you say, the things that we respect. The tattoos, I'm just going to be honest. There was no part of the body marking that we have now, tattoos, that came out of anything having to do with Africa. It did not. Did we have things that we did historically? Yes, I'm not disputing that. You're absolutely correct. But it is in no way, shape, or form that way. There's nothing about twerking now that has anything to do with no African dance. It is not true. It comes out of Luke Skywalker, sexual molestation of our children, demoralization of our sisters and their value, and just degradation of our culture. It has nothing to do with Africa. But because we've seen black women in Africa shake in African dance traditionally, and that's been going on for years, and we love how it looks, but if you still have a mind of decency, it doesn't look trashy and disgusting, because it's not. It's dance. It's not sex. It's not degeneracy. But she's shaking and shaking, yeah. But that's not, it's more like the bird that walks and flares its wings to show its beauty and its femininity or masculinity, whichever way it is with that species. It's a way of showing who you are, but it's not dirty. What we're looking at that we call twerking is dirty. It's just us devaluing. And again, don't misunderstand me. I'm a guy. Do I like black women? Yes. Do I like the way we're depicting and accepting our women depicting themselves now? No. because it lends itself to the legitimizing and justification of sexual abuse. In other words, the way that we behave now and the things that we tolerate and accept lend themselves to more and more sexual abuse occurring. Like, for instance, when I listened to NWA and I heard what they were saying, I never would do it because I just wasn't who I was. But I literally listened to the music and said, they're going to get a lot of girls raped. I said, there's a lot of rape, because I already was talking to sisters that had been molested. And I was like, this can't help. If dudes are already doing this, I can't imagine that this music saying this is going to do anything but make this thing spiral out of control. I had enough sense to know that. So what's happening now is, in our culture, everything that we used to respect, locks, that which is African, meaning whether it's dance, whether it's clothing, anything associated with being consciousness of who we are, like she was talking locks, even consciousness, even African-centered people, even black nationalism, even Pan-Africanism. I'm telling you, all of it has been morphed into fruitcakeism. I'm being 100% honest. Our music is fruitcake. Our hairstyles are fruitcake. Even if an individual's not fruitcake, like you said, originally it had consciousness. There's no association with consciousness. And honestly, a lot of what we call consciousness is fruitcake stuff now. A lot of people who call themselves Pan-Africans are fruitcakes. A lot of the ones who are respected are fruitcakes. What's happening? Our entire civilization and culture as African people, black man, black woman, black child, black self-respect, has been devolved and destroyed. We've been given dirty culture to legitimize it, and then to put it on that so you can be a fruitcake and wear locks. You couldn't do that. You can't do that, but you can do that now. You can be a super fruitcake talking like a fruitcake with locks in your hair, which means now the locks don't mean anything. Why am I bringing this up, and why am I spending so much time with it in this discussion? It's relevant. I'm going back and forth to Africa, been doing it for over 20 years now. There's a problem. And it hurts me to say this, but I'm gonna be real. There's a good side and there's a horrible side. Let me say the good side first, because I don't want to beat us up too bad. Let me just say this. 400 years surviving the hell of the Western Hemisphere has made us some of the most ultimate warriors in the history of the world. You don't find warriors like you do in black people in the West. We just a different type of warrior. To survive 400 years of the slavery and oppression and aggression and brutality, I don't know how he did it. I'm an African myself. I don't know how he did it. I'm even saying I don't know how he did it. How did we survive this? That made us warriors, and we have experience in resisting tyranny, genocide, and oppression. Now that's the good side. That's what we could bring to the African continent as they're rising out of the ashes now. We have three kings. We call them the three kings. Baba Goita in Mali, Baba Traore in Burkina Faso, the prince. And our people love this brother. And Baba Chiani in Niger, the elder. We have three solid black men who are leading their nations in a positive direction. They get militarily sound. They're strong. I've just come back from the region. I've just gotten back from Burkina Faso. It's beautiful what they're doing. You can see the culture, you can see the dignity in the people, the way they're wearing their own clothes. And you see very few tattoos and very few young brothers wearing their pants hanging off their butt. But I will be honest, because of the television, when you turn the television on, it hurts me to no end, because they're now mimicking us. So you go out, and I was there for 19 days. I saw 2 women with tattoos. I didn't see any men with a tattoo the whole time I was there. And I saw 2 women out of the entire population that I saw. And I saw a lot of people. 2 tattoos. I only saw 1 young brother with his pants hanging off his behind. And I'm sure there were others, but I only saw 1. When I turned on the television, though, I saw them speaking French, singing in French, rapping in French, emulating NWA in the modern era. Rick Ross in the modern era. Get more and more fruity, more and more degenerate, more and more totally contrary to, if you walk outside and meet the people, there's a dignity and a self-respect. But what you're seeing on TV was just them mimicking us. And that's why I'm bringing these things to our attention, because we don't realize how bad what we've allowed these people to push us into culturally impacts our people worldwide. Because we are so dynamic and have fought so hard and been so resilient, we have a lot more respect around the world than we think. The problem, that's not what we're putting out on the forefront. We're putting out the worst that we have to offer, and it's not good, because our people are rising out of the ashes to do the right thing now. And honestly, one of the biggest dangers I saw, we know we have the danger with the European, that's who they're fighting directly. But the real danger is following the direction that we have gone. Not like, now I'm not blaming and saying that we did it on our own. I'm not saying that we financed this on our own. I'm not saying that we were driven into this on our own. It was definitely warfare. But if it's warfare, the damage that was done to us here becomes the case study for the Euros to say, this is how we destroy black people. They know how they do it because they're doing it. They know how to do it because we're the test case to say, this is who they were. This proud and productive people who fought us tooth and nail for hundreds of years. This is who they are now. Even when we're not around, this is what they do. They call themselves N-words. They don't have to fight with us. We would have to argue with them to convince themselves not to insult themselves. I'm not beating up on us. I'm just telling the truth. The only thing that exists in nature, I want y'all to really think about this, brothers and sisters. And I love black people, so I'm black, and I'm from here. I told you I'm from DC. Same. I'm still the Irritated Genie, but I'm of the Southeast. I'm still here. But I want to be honest with us. Our people are looking for something from us. And here's the thing. We have the opportunity, being here, with our access to resource and our access to different skills that we've attained, we could be the greatest attribute to assist Africa in pulling itself out of the enslavement and the backwardness that they have, except in our current condition. The only thing that exists in nature that insults itself is black people on a regular basis. In other words, there's nothing that goes around in nature and tries to destroy itself and hates itself. Like there's nothing. There's no other race. The Chinese don't say, hey, and then use some negative term that was given to them by another group to describe them. There's nobody in China doing that. But have they faced oppression? Yes. Do they have the results of that oppression? Yes. Do Hispanics have results of oppression? Absolutely. Does everybody, Arabs, the whites have oppressed them too, and Arabs have done harm to black people, but Arabs have been oppressed by some of these groups too. But do any of them, anything, does any animal, does a bird, is there anything that we can look at other than black people who wake up in the morning and choose the very term that was used to lynch, rape, rob us of our families, rob us of dignity, enslave, overwork us, not pay us, kill us, there's nothing about the word that is good. It 100% is a reminder of the brutality and enslavement and destruction that we face as African people here in the Western Hemisphere. That's 100% of what it is. And yet we get up all day, and let me be real. It's not just the rappers. It's us, it's our children, it's the adults, it's the teenagers, it's the adults, it's the grandparents and the elders. and it's black nationalists and Pan-Africanists. You put the some brothers up there. I'll make this point and I'll move past it, but I want people to hear what I'm saying. It's important. I've had, I have, back and forth with people because, we have an identity disagreement. Some believe that they have a religious identity. Others believe their identity is more in line with this land where we are now. I'm clearly, being Dr. Chancellor Williams, being my intellectual father in terms of literature, I see us as African people, and I see myself as an African here in America. So we have those debates, but it's the funniest thing. We'll go back and forth. Are we Hebrews? Are we the original Hebrews? I'm saying we're African. Other people saying, no, we're really the real natives and all that. But was always an agreement. And I look at it and I say, wow, this is phenomenal. We are fighting on our identity. We all are arguing. And then something happens, and it don't matter if it's Pan-African, black nationalist, Kemetic, Hebrew Israelite, Christian, Muslim, that N-word this. Man, these N-words this. That's the one thing we agree. So we can't agree that we black. No, because black is dead and evil, but we can be an N-word though. That same person, I don't know what I'm saying. That same person will say we N-words though. The same person that says, Haru, Asar, said Haru, yeah, but these N-words, we are N-words though. Like the Christian who says, Jesus this and we gotta love each other, but these N-words, wait a minute, but so Jesus would have called black people N-words. I missed that part of the Bible where Jesus said, yeah, I'm here for everybody, but these N's, I ain't here for that. I ain't see that in the Bible. I didn't see Allah in the Quran say that we was N-words. I know the Quran has some very racist stuff in it. But it don't say we N-words. I say it has racist stuff, but they don't call us N-words. The only thing that exists in known reality that I know, unless you might share something with me, I might be wrong on this. I've thought about it long and hard. I was like, we're the only thing that exists that has been so destroyed and demoralized and affected that our decision of what we classify ourselves as, that we agree on. The thing we agree on is the very thing that marks our enemy's destruction of us as a race, that says we have no value. We're the only thing on the planet that does that. Why is that relevant? Because I've been going to Africa for years. I told you that. I didn't hear the N-word over there. I had to stop using the word. I stopped using the word. But now when I go, it's really starting to bother me because they're watching the music that we make, this noise that we make. They're watching this noise that we do, these garbage pornography videos that we do, real pornography or just hip-hop being pornography or just whatever we're doing is just pornographic. It's garbage. You watch these music awards and comedians and everything is vile and garbage. They're watching us and coming behind us. And now the only place I've gone in recent years, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, every country I go to, I get called the N-word. The only place I've been where I wasn't called the N-word, I just got back from Burkina Faso. And I'm not gonna lie, they don't speak English. So they speak French. So that might be the real one. I'm not sure, but it might be because they speak French. So I don't know. South Africa, I'm an N-word. And they think it's a positive thing. They don't think it's bad. They think it's like, hey, what's up, my N? I like real N's. I'm like, no. I ain't no N, and that's not a positive thing. Kenya, Uganda.
It becomes an issue based on the fact that, and I say this often, with us being the most ancient thing or beings on the planet, we should be those who are not just bilingual or trilingual, but multilingual. So when you look up words like we say niggas, we may not spell it N-E-G-U-S, but when we look up, it's pronounced just the same. So when we look up the word N-U-G-U-S and we find out that it is a Ethiopian word known as the sovereign of the land, the king, and then we look up the word Nagas or niggas, which is N-A-G-A-S, which is an ancient word, and we find out that these are the gods of Asia. It's just certain things, like when you're talking about the twerking situation. it's not utilized in it's the same dance form is not utilized for the exact same ritual. Like you got the sisters that's in the clubs or doing the exotic dancing or what they call at the titty bars or whatnot, doing the twerking, or your Cardi B's or your Megan Thee Stallions, but it seems to always capulate us trying to figure out who we are, but it's not used. It's bringing, I'm gonna say the Jews who are running the music industry or the entertainment industry as a whole, as a tool to captivate us, as well as financially stay above the bar, which is where they are, and they make money off of it. And we don't have the knowledge of self to understand that these are rituals as far as the movements of the body, which is energy. Just like the hair, and we was talking about the locks or whatever, it's the energy of the hair which was being utilized to show you that not just we are the kings or the queens, but we are the gods, we are the first of the earth. But that knowledge got lost by way of us only speaking English, so to speak, which goes back to us not being multilingual, trilingual, and bilingual. Now, when I meet various brothers and sisters from what we call the continent, or in Detroit, we have a lot of Arabs, right? This is when you look at Dearborn or Detroit on the map, this is where you have the most so-called Arabs or Chaldeans at. They speak French, they speak Spanish, they speak English, multiple languages when we don't. So they have a better understanding of certain languages that are used when we don't. We just speaking English, which is a modern tongue, versus those who are, again, multilingual. So they have a better understanding of the different words. But I just want to mark that the fact that when we start using the word nigga, like you are already mentioned in Detroit, like I grew up with the word nigga used in not just a negative fashion, like we're going, look at that nigga, he ain't this, he ain't that, or this is my nigga. Like I have a different view of it based on the fact that I saw my parents use it in dual meanings. But my grandparents come from where you come from. It wasn't used in a dual meaning. When they used the word nigga, they meant it strictly as a negative connotative word. But when it came from my parents, it was used differently. It wasn't used in the same. So us growing up listening to NWA versus us listening to a Public Enemy or NWA, it was kind of confused and mixed a little bit when we were already hearing the word as an endearment, so to speak, versus a deterrent or as a negative fashion. So in Detroit, the word continuously is used in both fashions. But again, when we deal with etymology,
I just want to jump in here because I want to be clear, and I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate it. But I'm gonna be honest. If we take a deep breath and are honest with ourselves, and it's easy to know because remember, in the early 1900s, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the one who started this Black love, self-respect in the modern context on a mass level. I mean, there were people before him, but I'm saying he the one that got it cracking. The word is so vile that Baba Garvey, in the rights of the Negro peoples, and the Negro people's rights of the Negro peoples, our own Constitution, number 11, Declaration number 11, we deprecate the use of this word. And he put the word that we deprecate, I mean, we hate it. And we will not allow this use. And at the time we were using the word Negro, we will use this word. What am I saying? I'm saying to be honest about it. The Negas Negast, yes, that was King of Kings in Ethiopia. But the truth of it is we're lying to ourselves. There's not one person who was calling us N-words that was thinking about no Ethiopia. It's just not true. Like, we're lying to ourselves. Like, we want to justify why we're the only people on the planet that are killing ourselves, even though we can look at what the word does. Every Black person that gets shot, before they get shot, N-word, pow, and then after shot, yeah, I shot that N-word. They don't say I shot the king. They don't say I shot the nigast. They say I killed that N-word. When sisters get mad at a brother and whatever, yeah, it's that N-word. It's not that king. If it was king, they would just say king. We're lying to ourselves. And I understand why we do it, because listen, I want to be honest. I hate doing this. You know what? I'm mad at you because you made me have to acknowledge something. I have to say this. I don't like this, but I got to be honest. I was the worst user of the word. That's how I know it's wrong. No, I grew up knowing the word was wrong. But when NWA came out, it was just the rhythm and spirit. It's like you got a sense of power. See, the word is so powerful to do harm to black people. And we're so powerless as black men in America overall, that to find something that gives you power, you want to go with it. So it's fake power because all you're doing is killing yourself. But to be able to go and say that around people and feel that, I remember I was doing it. I loved it. I used the word so much I didn't hear it. I mean, when I decided to stop, it took me a time because I had to first realize I say it every other word. I don't even use any other words. I was like, yo, how did I get this sick? Because I know the word is wrong, because I remember growing up it was wrong. And I never would say it around my mother or my grandmother. So I'm like, I can't lie to myself. I know that this is not good. But how did I get tricked into thinking that this was something positive? And I thought about
it. That's the point. Not to cut your wisdom, but I remember the first time I ever jumped on a thread that your people was on, right? And where we get lost at in translation is the fact that what makes nigga a bad word? What makes nigga a bad word is the scientific meaning of it, which is troglodyte nigger, which is a monkey, which has nothing to do with us, right?
And that's not what makes it bad. I don't agree with that.
It come back into the trading
I don't think that's what makes it bad, though. I don't think that's what makes it bad.
When you're talking about a troglodyte nigger, you're talking about a pale person. You're not talking about one of us. But when we talking about the word,
what makes the word bad,
nigga or niggas, we're talking about ancient people. We're not talking about a Neanderthal, right? The troglodyte nigger is specifically categorized towards the pale people, but we weren't never taught that. So when we say nigger,
but this is the thing, we're having a different conversation, or there's a fundamental disagreement. What I'm saying is, we can do backflips and intellectual diatribes or gymnastics all day long. The reality of it is, every time we kill each other, before and after, that's the word we use. Every time we steal from each other, that's the word we use. Every time we was hung on a tree, that's the word they used. We did not choose to use the N-word because it has some ancient meaning that is dishonest. We're lying to ourselves. You know why we chose to use it? Because them same folks you said that paid us millions of dollars realized that if they get us to be the only thing on the planet to disrespect ourselves, they can go take over the world and leave us to our own devices and come back next year and we'll be in the same condition or worse. Until we stop finding a justification for bad behavior, twerking is not African dance. It's whoring. It ain't. We shouldn't even use the words together. I've seen African dance. I've seen twerking. If you can just look at it, again, you have to know African dance. You have to know the difference in the spirit of what we're doing. N-word is not the same as African or brother. The word brother carries a spirit with it, because what is a brother? Your mother and father have a child, and then they have you, then they have another one. That's your brother. So even if you call somebody your brother that is not born of the same mother and father, the spirit of what you're supposed to do with a brother makes it difficult to kill another person if you call him that. There's a brother named Sloan. Brother named Bone. He was a gang member, a blood. And he did a thing called Bastards of the Party. And I thought it was the most mature thing that I ever heard somebody from the West Coast do in modern times. He did Bastards of the Party. He's a gangbanger. He kills people. He talks about it, that's what he do. He bang. And he talked about how it came out of the Panthers and all of that, the children of the Panthers when it all.
Training Day. They got the story a bit was based off of the Training Day mode.
Yeah. So Bone talked about how he said, if we're gonna stop killing each other, what do you have to do? I never forget he said, I said, man, this is, if we would just listen to what he's saying and actually do it and stop trying to dance around it, we could be beginning to change the problem. He said, we have to stop using this word. He said, why we got to stop using it? He said, listen, he said, in the military, when you're going to go to war with somebody, you create names for the people you're going to kill because you have to dehumanize them, remove the humanity from them so that it makes it easier for you to go kill them. He said, so when we use this word, yeah, I'm going to ride on that end, I'm going to ride on that. He said, it makes us easy to kill. He said, but if I said, yo, I'm going to ride on that brother, he said, it just don't compute. He said, it doesn't compute. I can't do it. Yo, let's go get these brothers. He said, I can't do it. So here's a person who kills people. That's how he grew up. And he said, this is what I do. But he had the maturity and wisdom to say, if we don't stop doing this, this is never going to change. Because every day on a regular basis, we're doing what the military does, which is how I know that who created this for us. This is not created for us by us. It's created by our enemies because we're doing what the military does. Just like he said, every day, all day, in every song, in every way, shape, or form, we make some excuse to do what? To tell a black person you have no value. And then we walk outside and look at how we're behaving and wonder why our young people are in the condition they're in. They're in the condition they're in because of us. We won't do the easy thing. It is easy to drop a word that has been devastating and destroying our people and stop using the word and just use another word. It's easy to say brother or sister, except psychologically, when we do that, we have to first say we were wrong saying it in the beginning with, so we get embarrassed. Then we got to say, now I got to practice stop saying that. Then we got to say, I can't even listen to the music I like because that's garbage. Then I can't watch nothing because everywhere I look, that's all we do all the time is death and carnage. Then we got to look at the brothers and sisters that are doing something positive and say, man, we doing harm to them by using this and being addicted to it. So we don't want to go through that process. So instead, all of the bad stuff that we've been doing is destroying ourselves. I'm not talking about what our enemies are doing. They might be financing it, but this is us. They can't make us come out of our mouth with the N-word. They can pay us a lot of money and give NWA millions of dollars and move out Public Enemy, and then we'll do it. And then everybody that comes behind them, you can't get a contract unless you call black people some N-words. They can do that, but they can't force us to do it. We just have complied. And the problem is that we haven't decided not to do it anymore. And until we stop insulting ourselves, not only are we going to continue to see the collapse of the condition of black people in this hemisphere, we have become a poison for our brothers and sisters around the world. None of them naturally do that, but they're starting to follow our path, and now they're starting to call themselves N-words. And it never ends up producing anything positive there any more than it does here.
I'm 50-50 with you on it based on the fact that, again, when we say the word nigger, we talking about the troglodyte, we talking about the Neanderthal. It's on the screen. So basically, when one of us use that word, we don't say it in that way. Not saying that I'm excusing it or whatnot, but again, when we start talking about niggas, we know sovereignty is something that, most of the time when we bring up, people typically think about clip sovereignty or sovereignty citizens or sovereign citizens, which again is an oxymoron when we dealing with actual language. But when we start talking about niggas, which you can see on the screen, that's a title primarily used for a king or a ruler, right? That's just niggas. When we start talking about nagas, we talking about the serpent. We see the serpent in ancient Egypt, right? We're talking about knowledge. We talking about when they start talking about Eve giving Adam the apple. When we go back into the actual story in which they stole that from, we're talking about Eve giving knowledge to Adam, versus most people who will talk about Adam and Eve or Christians or whatnot in that particular mythology, if I bring up Lilith, they don't even know who Lilith is, which is the wife that predates Eve, prior to being the wife of Adam. But it's just so many missing components to it, because again, with us being the most ancient people on the planet, or the original people of the planet, we're supposed to be not just speaking English, but we're supposed to be at the very least bilingual. At the midstream of it, we should be trilingual or multilingual.
But until we get that language, I hear what you're saying, but
we gotta
the reality
get to
of it is the Asian will not allow. You can do all the gymnastics you can do in the world. You're not going to get an Asian to say, yeah, we a bunch of chinks. He's not doing it. He's not willing to defile his people like that. In the modern context, we speak English. So in the English language, this word that we use is vile and detestable. And we know because that's what we kill each other with. All you got to do is turn on YouTube right now and play something with black people. And it's, yeah, N-word, yeah, it. There's nothing about that has nothing to do with a king, a queen, or nothing. It's vile self-hatred. And we're ignoring the reality to create an intellectual thing, when the truth of it is just basic maturity. All we have to do is say, you know what? This doesn't work. It's harmful. Let's control ourselves and have discipline and stop using the language that's destroying our people. Why wouldn't we say brother and sister? We did it before, and we got more achieved when we did it. When we were calling each other brothers and sisters, we got more achieved. We treated each other better. It didn't mean we were perfect, but we certainly weren't producing the rancid death and destruction in our community that we have now. It's really not an argument. The entire system of, I don't even call it music, noise that we listen to, the primary word is the N-word. And what does it tell you to do? Kill each other, do drugs, rape each other. If it would meant king, we wouldn't be talking about doing those things. They don't say king with it. They don't say, yo, what's up, my king? Let's go rob these kings. They don't say that. I'm gonna rob a king, my king. Nobody says that. It's because
that's that modern language. You know what I'm saying? We are ancient people dealing strictly in a modern tongue. You know what I'm saying? So that's
we have
just
to
my
modernize our language we have to modernize our language to have a future.
People on the planet, you understand?
Right.
We should be able to.
But we're the oldest, but to last the longest, we have to create something for the future. We're not living in yesterday. We learn from yesterday, but we're living today. Today, that word is killing us. So if it's killing us and we want to have a tomorrow, we stop using the word today that's killing us, and we made up words back then. We can make up words now. See, we have sovereignty in our own selves when we use it. We are not stuck with a word that's killing us. We can change and use whatever term we want, because if we choose to be sovereign, we can. Well, it is not an act of sovereignty to use a term that is completely destructive and can be proven and shown anytime, real time, any day, morning, noon, or night in this country and in the world. Is doing damage to our people with this term. There's no reason we have to keep doing it, except we're not operating under sovereignty. Why? Because the people that are getting us to use that word are paying us to do it. And it helps their interests because we don't improve. So that's not sovereignty. That's really the base definition of being a slave. If something doesn't work, the sovereign changes course. The sovereign doesn't sit there and say, well, 20 kings before me did it this way. Say, yeah, but they're coming in now and destroying us with this king. We need a new way. Well, then the sovereign's job then is to say, well, then we have to change course. I can't do what we did 20 years ago or 200 years ago because it's getting us killed. So if that term has any ancient use, Negas, I know Ethiopia, that was back then. This is not Ethiopia back then. This is America now, and it's destroying us. And we get rid of it and we do something that helps us. And we just do it and then we can make whatever term we want. We're sovereign. We can change. Nothing stops the sovereign from making any adjustment that needs to be made. That is the definition of sovereignty. You can determine your course. It's not about yesterday, it's about tomorrow. You build off yesterday, but the sovereign says, I want this for tomorrow. Now I'm going to make it, and then you enforce it. And that's the definition of sovereignty in practical application.
It's for me. It's also again a matter of a change in places, which is why when the pale people use the so-called N word, they specifically use the ER, nigger, because they knew that when you say nigger, then you are talking about a troglodyte. You're talking about the Greco-Roman, again, geographical usage of the word, which would point at them. It would not point at us. You say nigger,
could we improve our condition? Could we
us.
could we improve our condition by changing and stop using that word and using something that's beneficial to our people in the modern context? Could we improve our condition?
If we become bilingual, multilingual, trilingual, then we will have a better understanding.
But let's say
of
we're not trilingual, we're not bilingual. I'm
the
saying
word
right now we're not
actually
bilingual.
means.
I'm saying we're not
meaning
going to
of the
become.
word is what
Right,
I'm
I'm
getting
saying
at.
tomorrow. I'm saying tomorrow. I'm not going to become bilingual or trilingual in a day, but I can make a decision to stop insulting my people. I'm saying if we're serious, do we do the thing that we have absolute power to do so that we can do it instantly? Or do we talk theory? Oh, if we became bilingual, we're not bilingual or trilingual. Why don't we be with the language we have now? Why don't we do something to affect change tomorrow? I know that we can do it because I had to do it. I was addicted to, look, I would argue this thing just as hard as you probably. I was way worse, honestly. To be honest, I was so bad. I feel embarrassed sometimes having this discussion, but I was just wrong. And I mean, I'm embarrassed that I was that wrong.
I'm just more embarrassed of the fact that we the most ancient people on the planet, but we are stuck as so-called Americans only speaking a modern tongue. English is a modern tongue. Whether you're talking about Old English, Middle English, whatever it is, it's a modern tongue. So therefore, we don't know half of what the words that we say mean at the end of the day. So again, when not to despite what you're saying, but what I'm saying is we notice there's a difference when a pale person uses the N word. They specifically say nigger. They never say nigga or naga or them niggas over there.
Right, but
never
I'm not talking about. Yeah, but this is important. This is important.
They always specifically say nigger. Because they doing the trading places. We all seen the movie.
Sister, we talking right. We're gonna have to. We're gonna have to either move past the conversation or something because we're talking two different things. I ain't talking about white folks using it. I'll be honest with you. I prefer somebody white.
I'm just talking about us being stricken to only speaking
if somebody
modern language when we are an ancient people stuck communicating with one another
uses
in a modern language. That's all I'm saying. We don't know the meaning of the word in ancient terms when we are the most ancient thing on the planet, which ultimately is the problem. When I meet people from the continent of Africa, whether they're so-called Arabs or whether they're Ethiopian, 9 times out of 10 they are multilingual or bilingual by most. Over here in the Americas, north, south, and central, we are not. We only either speak English or we only speak Spanish, which are 2 modern tongues.
If somebody white uses that word, right. If somebody white uses that word, if somebody white uses that word, now I have authority to knock their teeth out. Because when they use that word, but what I'm saying is that word means you're going to hang me. Here's the problem. We find gymnastics to do when the black person uses it because there's a problem. But I love you. You're black. I don't want to knock your teeth out. But you're using the same thing that gets me lynched and you're going to rob me. So the thing is, you have the same interest that the white man has. That's why you're using the same words he's using. If we are sovereign, and this is the last thing I'm going to say on it because, and I'm thinking it sounds like you're committed to the use of the term. What I'm saying is, whether it's you or anybody, I'm talking about myself. I gave it up for a reason. I gave it up.
I'm just not to cut your
I'm saying I gave it up because my decision was. I'm sorry, man. Let me finish.
And multilingual because that ultimately is the problem. We only speak in English, which is a modern tongue.
What I'm saying is, if you're going to use it, that's fine. I'm saying for everybody out there, like myself, if you take an honest assessment, just walk out tomorrow, walk outside, And you can do all the gymnastics you want, take an honest assessment of our community and listen to how our people talk and ask yourself, would we benefit as Black people if we stopped using this word and using it altogether? And the answer for most people will be something that I think we would agree we would benefit. Now, the question would be, are you willing to take that plunge and do it with that self-improvement? And at that point, I mean, we probably won't agree on that. So I'm sure there are other things that we can talk about, though.
Yeah, we good. We good. My only point, I'm not dwelling on the so-called N word. My point is dealing with the fact that, again, we are the most ancient people on the planet, but we are stuck to speaking one language, which is the most modern language on the planet. Again, English is the most modern language on the planet, and we are the most ancient thing on the planet. And that's where the barriers of dealing with etymology comes in with us. Like, we are very comfortable with the usage of the word Black, but we all know, those of us who are educated, right, in dealing with etymology, we know that originally the word Black had nothing to do with our pigmentation or us being melanated people. It was exactly the opposite. But again, with the white man playing his games the same way he playing the games with this word nigger, which points at him. The word nigger has nothing to do with our pigmentation, our pedigree, or us being melanated beings. When you say the word nigger, you are specifically talking about the troglodyte nigger, which is the cracker. Has nothing to do with us. But again, with us only being speaking this one language and us not being bilingual, trilingual, or multilingual gets us caught up in this bullshit as to, excuse my language, when we hear the word, we don't like certain brothers and sisters, when we say the word nigga, some of us will have a problem with that, but that's because we have not studied etymology. Those of us like myself who has studied etymology understand nigga goes back 5,000 years ago. Niggas goes back 3,000 years ago. But when you start talking about the word nigger, that strictly goes back to the cracker. That has nothing to do with us, which is, again, it goes into the trading places. But I don't want to get caught up on one word when we have such a great bill. I just want people to know that we need to, at the very least, like you say, you was just seeing a Burkina Faso. Had you been multilingual or trilingual, it would have been much more that we can accomplish when we go over to that particular continent. Because everybody over there doesn't just speak English. Most of them speak Arabic, French, Spanish, Portuguese, various languages. But over here in the North Central and South America, it's only two languages that most melanated people speak, which is English and Spanish, which are the two most modern languages that we can speak as ancient people. And that has become a barrier with us being able to progress and being able to build with brothers and sisters in other countries or in other continents, whether we talking about Europe or a Kibu line or over here in the Americas. We still have barriers with brothers and sisters who are Brazilian or brothers and sisters who live in Venezuela because we only speak English. And that is a barrier with us. And it also creates these false themes of what the particular word means. Again, when a cracker say, he don't say nigga. You ain't never heard a cracker try to be offensive to us use the word nigga. He always says nigger, which points at him, which is what's on the screen, which is his ancestors, which don't have shit to do with us. But again, what it makes it do is it makes us bump heads. We don't need to bump heads. We have a common goal on the table, right? We don't need to be bumping heads about a word that, again, we start saying nigga, niggas, nigger. These are three distinctly different terms. They do not mean the same thing. And again,
do the rappers use it that way when they talk about? I'm sorry,
I killed that nigger, or you are my nigger. We don't even talk like that.
I'm sorry. Do the rappers use that when they talk about? They use the NIGGA. Do they use that when they talk about killing other black people?
I'm saying sometimes you be like, I killed Michael because he was a pedophile. It just depends. It's just
No,
my whole
I'm
point.
asking you right now if
It's not the word
the
in
music,
particular. My
that we
issue,
listen to,
brother,
that
I
our
promise
children
you,
are
my
getting
only
fed,
point
the
is the
music that
fact
our children are getting fed. I'm asking you,
mothers and
when
fathers
black
are
people are talking about killing other
ancient
black people,
on
I'm
the
asking you
planet.
the question.
We never
When
call
black
each other
people are
dirt.
talking
We have
about
never,
destroying the
black
black
men
community,
and
when
said,
black people are
you
talking
got never
about
dirt.
giving
That
drugs to
never
other black
in
people,
instances.
when black people are talking about giving drugs and selling them to other black people and murdering them, they use that word that you're talking about. I'm asking you, they use Nigga, and they're talking about killing black people. Are you saying that that's an appropriate use of that word and it's beneficial to our people?
No, I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that, again, as the most ancient people on the
So
planet,
would it benefit us if we
we
stop
should
using the
not.
word?
No. As the most ancient people on the planet, we should not be confined to speaking the most modern language on the planet. As the most ancient people on the planet, at the very least, we should be trilingual. I should be able to communicate with you
Are
and
there any other
know.
words that you could use to replace that, so we could replace that word and use a different word so that people like myself who see the damage it's doing won't be offended and will be comfortable being in a room where we're not calling each other that? Is there any other word, or that's the only word that we can use to define each other?
Bro, I promise you, I do not have a problem with us referring to each other as brothers and sisters. That's not my issue. My issue is the fact that, again, as the most ancient people on the
Is it
planet,
preferable to
we
the N
should
word?
be,
Okay.
we should be,
Is it
we,
preferable though? Is one better than the other? Is it better for me to call brothers and sisters than use the N word? Is that preferable? Is that a better thing to do?
no. Again, I don't disagree with you on that point. My
No, I'm
only,
asking you. You haven't
no.
answered. I'm asking you.
And again, and I'm answering your question. My only point of contention is the fact that we, as the mothers and fathers of civilization, should not be confined to only speaking English, which is the most modern tongue known to man. That is my only issue. And with that
Right.
being said,
Right.
if you and
But you
I,
didn't answer the question. It's really a question. It's a genuine question. Is it better to say brother and sister than the N word?
I already told you, I agree with you on it.
No, you didn't say it. Yes. Are you saying yes?
Yes, I'm saying.
Okay, so
I'm
it's
saying.
better. So I'm saying, well, then why don't we do what's better? Why don't we do what's better? I'm not. We don't even have to agree. If that's better, why would we do what's worse? Let's choose what's better. And then the argument doesn't matter, because whether it's good or bad, if this is better, then we would all choose to do which is better, and we would improve our condition by doing what's better. Brother or sister. What's up, my brother? What's up, sister? What's up, brother? What's up, sister? And we don't use that word anymore because we've agreed that this is better. That's an easy agreement, Dave.
I'm just saying we have to be more advanced. With, again, there would be no English, no Spanish, no Portuguese, no French, no none of that without us. And with us, again, over here in the Americas, North, South, and Central, only speaking one language is ridiculous. When we've both been on other parts of the mother plane, and most melanated people speak more than one language. And for me, that's the barrier. That's the problem. Again,
so we can say hermano. Hermano is Spanish, so we can say, what's up, hermano? What's up, amigo? We can say amigo. What's up, amigo? That's Spanish. What's up, amigo? We don't shoot each other calling each other amigo. What's up, amigo? We used to say that in my school, so that's another word from a different language. So I'm not disputing you that we can use different languages. Okay, so let's say amigo. Drop the N word and we call each other amigo. Can we do that? That means friend. What's up, amigo? Nobody shoots nobody saying amigo. Nobody kills nobody. Nobody robs nobody. Nobody goes up to a dude and say, man, I'm going to go rob this amigo. I'm going to kill this amigo. Nobody does that. Because if you call him amigo, it's hard to go do that. Like, it makes it more difficult for us to have conflict, because we're not putting out a frequency of something that is known traditionally. The songs sing about killing it with that word. Nobody talks about killing amigos. Nobody talks about killing hermano, my brother. If you don't want to use the English language, brother. However you say brother in French, you can say it in whatever word is used that we can eliminate this thing that's doing so much damage and replace it so that we can have an easier way to communicate that makes it easier for us to be in a room, to make us more civilized people, to talk more civilized so that we can behave more civilized.
I hear you. I just need us to, you know what I'm saying, understand etymology. Then we can get into the mythology if necessary, as well as again as speaking more than one language. Because again, with us only communicating in English, this is the barrier that creates this false sense of, okay, if I utilize this word instead of that word, when again we're talking about, again, words like niggas and nagas keep coming back into play based off of energy that we may not necessarily recognize. But again, regardless to whether or not we recognize it or we deal with etymology as a whole, it's no different than a lot of brothers and sisters have a problem with the word black. My grandparents, this word that we use, we black people, they had a problem with that word black. They didn't want to deal with that word black. That word black meant nigga or nigger to them, the same way that we have a problem, or some of us have a problem with the word nigga. The word that I have a problem with is the word nigger, because that's when we get on a level of disrespect. But again, when brothers and sisters aren't bilingual, trilingual, or multilingual, they'll weigh out the word nigger the same way they'll weigh out the word nigga when they have totally different connotative meanings. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I don't have a problem. I would much prefer to deal with you with the word brother or sister. But again, me using the word brother or sisters does not erase the word nigger or niggas or nigger. Again, the white people specifically use the word nigger. They never use the word niggas or nigga. And that's for a specific reason. They know that word nigger relates to a troglodyte nigger, which goes back to their pedigree. It has nothing to do with our pedigree. But I don't want to get stuck on a word. I just want people to know the differences in between the three words that we have used. I understand the fact that most times when so-called melanated people use the word nigga, they're using it in a negative connotative diction or whatnot. But again, I'm from Detroit. I'm not going to be able to erase the word nigga. We've already tried. We had what's the comedian Paul, what's his name, that was cool with Richard Pryor. All of them got together in Detroit at the Hard Plaza.
Paul Mooney.
Paul Mooney. They said they weren't going to use the Richard Pryor did it too. He wasn't going to use the word nigga no more, and they all still use the word. It's a reason for that. The same way that we not going to be able to get together. We can do 1,000 podcasts and try to get the sisters to stop twerking, but they not going to stop doing it because it's a matter of energy. Maybe they're projecting pornography, understand, but the fact that the energy still there exists, the same way I was locking my hair in 94, 95, and people wasn't feeling me, but the brothers and sisters is not going to stop locking their hair based off of influence. The same thing with the tattoos. The tattoos are ancient. I got a keloid on my arm right now when my arm was ready to grow another arm. If this didn't heal, it's the same thing. It's like you said, going through the rites of passage is something that as a people we missed out on. We don't know brothers and sisters who went through a rite of passage to be able to graduate into their adult stage of life because we weren't taught that. And that comes back down to what I said about us not being bilingual, multilingual, trilingual. We stuck speaking the most the most modern tongue on earth when we are the most ancient people on earth. So I just want all of us to more reach out into the study of etymology, as well as becoming multilingual, bilingual, trilingual, and things of that nature, so we don't get our panties up in a bunch based upon certain terminology and how it's being used and used, how we use it against one another. I'm with you. Again, I would much rather us make reference to one another with the word brother or sister. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with the elimination of the word a nigger, especially of the word nigger, because the word nigger does not define us as a people. It's not ancient enough to define us as a people. So I understand your beef. The same way over 10 years ago, I got into it with one of your followers some time ago, because they came at me with this, I'm biracial when I'm not biracial. Both of my parents are fully melanated and much darker than me. I just came out a little bit lighter with their curly hair, but just by the sister looking at me, she assumed that I was biracial or something like that. So we got into the usage of the word nigga and things like that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, you may have blocked both of us. This was over 10 years ago. But again, this goes back to us, again, as an ancient people only speaking a modern tongue. That puts us in a situation as to where we don't get a complete over and understanding of the usage of certain terms. And to me, that's ultimately the problem. But again, I'm with you. I will much rather use the word brother or sister than to use the word nigga, because again, most people they ain't even bilingual. You understand? So words like Negro, it still means black at the end of the day, which again, it don't even point towards us. It points towards a pale bleached out, because that's the original meaning of the term. But as brothers and sisters, we'll still utilize the term when we dealing with one another. But
Let me
again,
do one second. Let me do something. Just because I put it on my phone and I didn't plug it up, it'll just take me 1 minute. I'm gonna get my cord so I can put it in to keep it going. So keep going. I'll be just back literally 60 seconds so I can plug it in so it doesn't go out. Give me 1 second.
we good. I'm not arguing with you. I would much rather utilize the word brother or sister than to utilize the word niggas or niggas, because again, our people, we just speak English. You understand? This is whether you're talking about old English, middle English, high German, low German, like this is something that's beneath us as a people, right? We predate. If it wasn't for our ancestors, we would have no English, German, French, Portuguese, Spanish. We would not have any of these languages. So I'm with everybody on that. But again, when it comes to doing commerce and trade and dealing with these people within law, it's certain words that I don't use. I don't use the word black when it comes to dealing with local, state, or federal government, because I know what that does. I do not use the word black the same way that my brother don't use the word nigga, right? I don't use the word black. But when we building with one another, I don't have a problem with the utilization of the word black, because I know 9 times out of 10 the brothers and sisters that I'm communicating with only speak this one language, as to where I'm somewhat bilingual and trilingual myself. So I understand whether it's some brothers and sisters that believe that the word Negro gives them some type of sovereignty above using the word African American or black, and I disagree with them. I have the right to disagree with them, because again, I'm somewhat bilingual and trilingual. I understand that the word Negro is a Spanish word, right? So it just leads back to black. So again, if I'm dealing with local, state, or federal municipalities, I don't allow them to call me black. For me to allow them to call me black would be the same as me to allow them to call me nigger. It's the same, or Negro. It's the same thing. But when I'm dealing with somebody who only speaks one language, they don't understand what I'm saying to them. They don't understand they don't understand law. They don't understand etymology when I do. So if we just conversate with one another, I'll give that grace. But again, if we're dealing with these local municipalities, state municipalities, and federal executive, judicial, and legislative branches of government, I don't allow them to reference me as any of that shit. So again, I'm with you on us utilizing the term brother or sister. I don't have a problem with that, because again, the vast majority of us aren't bilingual, trilingual, or multilingual. So they're not going to have an understanding of this terminology.
So what I would say is, in the same way I say that we would benefit as a race of people from dropping that word, there's a reason why it's so important. because when we started using that word is when, I mean, well, not the figure, we did it multiple times. Whenever they want to destroy the context of family and basically the civilization and the culture in the black community in America, they sponsor that word. So Baba Garvey said we're going to eliminate that word, Declaration number 11. And so they fought against it and then began to build and build for black people. Elijah Muhammad and the Nation of Islam came out. They didn't say the black man is an N-word. They said the black man is God. Why? Because when you say something like that, it forces people to change on some level their behavior system. And if you, the more you force them to say, hey, beloved, hey, brother, sister, then if you're going to say something negative, some of our brothers and sisters are lost. So you say lost instead of a word that's demeaning, which makes it easier to cooperate and deal with our people. Well, what happens is when they paid in 88, each time someone, really it was the 70s, which is why Richard Pryor came back and said stop using it, because they were paying black people to use that word in comedy. And so Richard Pryor helped normalize the use of that term. Then he realized he was wrong and he pulled it out. They were paying money for it. That's why the word keeps coming back. But in the 80s, the danger of it was this. That's why it was so dangerous. They came in, not only was it we're going to call each other N-words, but we're going to normalize the description of our women. See, the men are N-words, which means they have no value. Well, if the man has no value, then his seed has no value. And the woman that he's with, that produced the seed, has no value. Now she's a bee and a hoe. So now our women are bees and hoes. I tell people, again, we really got to start thinking. The most consistent term used to refer to black people in this country, and it's a horrible thing to say, but it's used more frequently than any other term, is the N-word. The most frequent term used to describe a black woman. You got to add up all of the times it's said in music and how many times a person listens to it. In our language system, how we talk, is the B word. These B. That's the
right.
primary.
You know what a bitch is? A bitch specifically, excuse my French, I'm from Dey-Twah, I speak a lot of French. I'm saying the word bitch specifically points at the pale face female. It has nothing to do with us, but due to the fact that, again, our people predominantly, when I'm speaking in North America, only speak English, so we don't recognize that. When we look into the Hideos Biblios, so King James Version of the Bible, we don't even recognize the word bitch because most of us don't have a Hebrew Greek concordance, Strong's concordance when we read in the Bible to understand when Yahshua ben Yosef or Yahshua bar Miriam used that word. He specifically, the word is bitch. When he tells the so-called pale-faced woman that she's not of their pedigree or their stock, the word specifically is a bitch. Understand? No, and I'm with you. We should not, as melanated people, be making reference to our women with the B word, because when you use that word bitch, the most, even a person who has various degrees out of the various universities, when they hear the word bitch, the most knowledge that they'll have is a female dog, right? They don't go into the fact that when you're using that word bitch, you're specifically talking about a pale-faced woman, to the point. So again, you are absolutely correct. When using that word is the exact opposite of a melanated woman, because that word point specifically at a pale-faced woman. But again, we dealing with a people, which is the most ancient people, who only speak in one tongue, so they don't have that knowledge of etymology to know when they're using that word bitch, it doesn't just point at specifically a pale-faced female. But when we look up Romulus and Remus, which I do multiple times, and I show the white babies feeding off the breast of the wolf dog, that is ultimately what a bitch is. But again, we only speak one language and we don't know etymology. We don't know the difference between connotative and words that are denoted, as to where we feel like it's fine to call one another bitches when ultimately what we're talking about is a pale-faced woman. That's all I'm saying. being
Right.
that
So
again,
the point I'm making here, the point I'm making is when we open up the door, because really when we use that N word, what we're saying is we have no value, because that's what the word means in this country. So once we do that for the men who are supposed to be protecting women and children, once we don't have any self-respect, we call ourselves that, it lends itself to the springboard of now we normalize disrespect for our women and children. And then we wonder why we are having problems with our relationships with black men and black women, because the language system we use is, and I'm not even talking about from the etymological standpoint, I'm talking about the practical, applicable, visual sight of what happens when we use these terms and how we use them. We use the N word to kill each other. I don't think anybody would dispute that. So I'm saying when we see it in every movie that we see it, in every song that we hear it, even in the real world, when we're saying something negative, it's N word. Then women are bees and hoes. The question becomes, are a people who continue to use that language system going to improve their condition? I would argue the easy answer is no. And how would I prove that? Or the basis I would use to try to prove it is we go through waves of improvement in America because we're always under hostile attack. We went the Garvey movement was up, then we went down. Then the Nation of Islam come up, then we go back down. The Panthers come up, and we go. So we keep going up and down. Since NWA, we have not gone back up because music has not gone through any shifts, and culture has just devolved into filth and pornography because we call ourselves insults and are not trying to improve. Once we make the decision that we want to be sovereign, meaning we're going to go our own direction, we will make the determination of what terminology we will use to refer to each other. And the first step in doing that is eliminating the things that we use to each other that insult each other on a regular basis. It doesn't mean that we don't qualify bad behavior with terminology that's suitable. However, we have seen from 88 NWA till now a consistent decline in the quality of black life in the black community. And I'm not even talking about what other people are doing to us, what we do to one another in our own selves. And if we can't do something as simple as stop insulting ourselves, I would suggest we're not going to do anything else that we need to do to better the condition and the trajectory of black people in this country.
I don't disagree at all. I mentioned earlier that my main purpose of even having this Alhambra Society 313 channel is to eliminate the pseudo information. And the second reason is to dead these gender wars that we're having against one another. The women hate the men hate the women. They're doing the what is it, the passport brothers or passport boys things. Like those are my two main themes on this channel, which is the very reason that I reached out to you, is to dead the pseudo information. And again, the gender wars that are happening within, whether you're talking about the conscious community or whether you're talking about, again, the brothers and sisters who are guided by way of the entertainment industry as a whole, not just the music industry as a whole. Because again, when we start talking about the music industry, this is another form of entertainment, the same way football, basketball, baseball, and the movie industry, it's all the same, right? And it always had a cap on it. If we went, when I was younger, I seen Friday the 13th, Friday the 13th Part 2, Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, and all of these other films, which were based or rated upon, okay, this is an R-rated movie, so without your parent being present, you shouldn't be viewing this movie. It's the same thing with the music industry. It should have been rated the same, but unfortunately, when we start talking about the radio, or a radio channel, or whatever you want to call it, where they're only playing certain music that are being paid for by way of the various record labels or whatnot. This shouldn't be my 12-year-old or my 16-year-old shouldn't be able to listen to certain music. That should be barred to them. There should be a parental guidance sticker provided. But right now, the children aren't going out and buying CDs or cassettes or vinyl the way that we used to in the 80s and the 90s. Now it's whatever's being played or promoted by way of the radio stations is what they hear consistently, to the point to where if you want to hear actual R&B or contemporary jazz or regular jazz, the only way you're going to be able to do that is if you have a subscription to the various channels that play that type of music. But unfortunately, this is not what's happening. So we probably do need to revisit, like you mentioned, Luke Skywalker earlier, or Luther Campbell by way of the 2 Live Crew, when they went through their cases or whatever to be able to get that sticker put off on the music. It needs to be put back as to where our children aren't able to listen to whatever they want to listen to without our permission to listen to it. Like the most of the music that they play and they label as soul music. Right now we got neo soul music. It's various artists who are putting out good music, but our children aren't hearing it. They're hearing the garbage that you're talking about, versus back in the day, especially here in Detroit in particular, we would hear Aretha Franklin and Patti LaBelle and Anita Baker. Right now, they're not hearing any of that. When they hear so-called R&B music, it's Chris Brown or whoever. He's rapping and dancing, and he has Lil Wayne and Busta Rhymes and all. This is not how it went in our day and age. So these are things that we need to aim at.
When you said something, it triggered something. Maybe when you talked about the Passport Brothers and everything. One of the things I look at is the reality in the world. A lot of times as men, we want to say the man is the leader. That's true. The man is the source. The man plants the seed. All of that's true. But this is the thing, though. If you're going to say that, then that means you not only get the credit, you also get the responsibility and accountability. So what happens is, and I'm going to go back to the source, because I think this is what we've been talking about tonight, and I think it's worthwhile, because we're going to have to decide what we're going to do. If we go back to 88, we were already in a situation where we had a lot of problems in this country. But the sexual abuse, I know from talking to people, was already bad. But when we allowed a group of black males to come out and glorify the murder of black people, this is NWA, glorify rape and abuse and the trashing and demoralization of black women, justifying it, glorifying it, which severely increased the level of rape and molestation in our communities, and then set a pace where the standard terminology that every girl that was born from 1988 and up was that her males are N-words and that they are bees and hoes. If we did that, then we look, and I hear brothers do it all the time. It infuriates me, because I'm like, okay, I understand the condition of our women right now is terrible. But if we called them bees and hoes for the last 40 years or 35 years, did we expect to produce queens? If we are molesting children through the course of this entire framework in time, are we going to produce these loving black women who love their brothers and are committed to their brothers, and if it's ups or down, we'll be with you forever? I don't think that's going to work like that. I think if you want queens, you produce them by providing for them, protecting them. We're not just talking about money. We're talking about to allow our daughters and sons to raise up in a world where people can call them the most hostile terminology and allow it to happen and there be no consequence becomes a problem. And when we're doing it, it becomes worse. When others are doing it, then it's like, hey, we got enemies. That's who they are. But when they look like us, if the black girl goes outside and the person is saying that she's a B and doesn't have no value and it looks like her as her male hates her, why do we think that those women will be beholding and remain loyal to us? So what happens is, brother, and I'm not saying that brothers should deal with women who don't treat them right. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying we want these cooperative women, and in a system where we haven't fought our enemies properly, so they educate our women in these schools. It's not us. It's not coming from black men, education in these schools, responsible black men. It's not Dr. Clark. It's not Bob McQuasey. It's not myself that are educating our women and children. When they're getting miseducated, the television is misinforming them on a day-to-day basis in our communities. Wherever you go, we call them bees, and that's what we call them that. When we're doing this, and then we expect anything different than what we're getting, it means that we're no longer masculine. See, part of being a man is to identify a problem and then seek to fix it. Well, the problem is a culture that has been created. It's been sponsored from the outside by the same people you mentioned earlier. They don't look like us, but the people doing it is us. And as black men, we haven't made the change. And so we complain about the condition of our women. They all feminists and they hate men. Yeah, they do. I'm not saying they should, but I'm saying they've been taught to hate men, either by the abuse that we have done to them in our families and in our communities, or the abuse that we allow to exist in the culture with the music and its other garbage, or it could be the television programs that we don't even produce. It could be the miseducation that we're not even giving them, but we're allowing our enemies to have that kind of control and dominance over what goes into the minds of our women. And so, yes, there is a condition that becomes very difficult to contend with. And then on the women's side, what I would say is, and I tell women this all the time, I say, sisters, I love y'all to death. And yes, right now, to some degree, there are times y'all can be impossible to get along with. But I say, I tell you what, you want to beat up on somebody, this will be the most fair thing. You tell black men that you need us to figure out how to stop the sexual abuse from occurring in the black community and stop the insulting of black women in the black community. Doesn't mean that you accept bad behavior from us, doesn't mean you allow us to abuse you, but would you please stop people from raping us as children? Would you please stop making music that justifies sexually raping and exploiting us? Would you do that for us? And I say, and I know that, I'm not a woman, so I can't say, but I always tell sisters, we need you all to start saying, we want y'all to do something about this. We want this to stop. Now, the irony of that, it would be great because that would be something that black people could galvanize behind and say, you know what, this is a valuable objective for us to push to. Let's start protecting our children from this. Here's the thing. I used to beat up on brothers bad because we didn't finish R. Kelly when he urinated on that little 14-year-old girl. I said that was our fault, and I beat up on brothers. But brothers came back and hit me, and I had to chill. I said, okay, you're right. Because brothers from Chicago said, nah, brother Genie, you're not being fair to us. I said, why not? We supposed to deal with this dude. He said, we was trying to deal with. We heard what you said. We saw the video of feminization of black male. You said, get rid of this problem. I said, brother, we was out there, but you forgot what happened. I said, what happened, bro? And then when I looked it up, I was like, he's right. He said, we had him pinned in. He couldn't go anywhere. When he went to a concert in New York, the brothers was standing there ready to get him. He had to flee. He said, when we was in Chicago, we was burning his CDs, tearing them up, torching them. He said he couldn't go anywhere. He said one day we caught him, I think it was at the studio. He said we surrounded it. He said we about to go in and get him, bruh. He said a line of black women. I don't know if it was 20 or more.
Mm.
A line of black women got up and said, no, don't go do nothing to him. This is the same dude that's urinating on their daughters. And these black women are so sick that instead of supporting the brothers that are being men, going in to fix the problem, they jumped in front of the problem, which now makes those men have to say, do we hurt our sisters in order to hurt this monster? And the brother said, we just couldn't do it because we couldn't bring ourselves to knock these women upside their head just to go get to him. We didn't want to do that to the sisters because we wasn't there for them. We was there for him. And when they said that, I said, wow, I started thinking about all of the sisters that told me. When I can't tell you how many, oh my God, how many sisters oh boy. I'm sorry, sometimes I have to think about how many sisters say that they told their mother, their birth mother, that this guy, usually it was a stepfather or a boyfriend. Sometimes it was the real father, but most times it wasn't. Most times it was a stepfather or boyfriend, that he did something to them. And the mother, most of the cases I've heard from sisters directly telling me, the mother smacked them in the face and said, well, it was the problem, you whore. It was your fault. You shouldn't have been dressing like that or something. So blamed her, and she had to keep going through it for time. So again, I'm not saying this is an easy scenario, because now we're talking about the dark, unspoken of realities that go on in our community that are the intimate realities that are destroying the self-esteem of our people. And we're linking them to the culture that's being promoted and sponsored from outside, paying us to say the things that justify that, so that now we got a spiraling situation with black men and black women supporting the behavior that's destroying our community. When in fact, if you were to ask a black person in a calm moment, do they think children should get molested in our community? They would say no. Do you think little boys should be getting raped? They would say no. Do you think little black girls should be getting raped? They would say no. And it's a conversation that we don't have honestly. And I don't think we organize on the level that we should in order to bring it to an end. Because this is not something that's going to fix itself. And it's spreading around the world. It's already around the world, but it's getting worse and worse in South Africa. It's horrible. I know that we're talking about black people, but I'm just saying this to make the point that it is not just us. When I talk about how bad it is in the black community, particularly here in DC, DMV area, I've had black teachers that come to me and say, look, it's bad in our community, but brother, you have no idea what it's like in the Hispanic community. Where I hear from the people in this area, they say it's epidemic that the girls in the house are getting molested by their father, their brothers. Sometimes they got 6 or 7 brothers, and the father and the 6 brothers use them as the sexual toilet, the sister in the house. And like, this is very, very, very prevalent in Hispanic communities in America. And I've heard it in more than one city, which is horrid, because again, it goes, you were talking about this earlier, you were talking about Catholicism. And you were talking about that, this Catholicism that bleeds through and hits the Hispanic community, the Mexica. Here they got hit with this stuff, and I don't think that they've had this conversation. I don't think that they said, how do we organize to say this is not our culture, and let's pull this behavior out of our culture any more than we have as black people. In fact, I think black people may have had more conversations than some other communities. It's big in the Jewish community. It's big in the white community. It's big in the Native American community. This behavior that stems in this Western hemisphere from slavery. Internationally, is more complex than that. But in this Western hemisphere, in terms of my documented research of where I can trace it to. I can trace it to the sex farms that they had in America, the sex farms they had in the islands, the sex farms they had in South America, the breeding farms that they had in America, the entire culture of the South, where I don't know how many people know this, but in the summertime, it was tradition that whites in the North would send their sons that just turned 18 into the South to visit the slave plantations, their family members on slave plantations in the South, because that's where they could have their first sexual experience with a black woman or a black girl and learn how to have sex. So that was like, and it would be okay if they impregnated them, because then they would make more slaves, so enslaved people. So this became part of the culture and tradition of American society. This is our history here as a people. So I'm not trying to demoralize the conversation. I think what we see, and that's what I was saying earlier, when I go to the African continent, I'm not saying it's perfect. It is not. What I will say is this, though. Man, coming back from Burkina Faso, those are some proud people. Everything they wear, their clothes, they wearing their natural clothes that they're making themselves. They look, they were like we used to be. You from Detroit, so you'll know what I'm talking about. You remember the mid 1980s when every day you came out the house, everybody was stepping. Everybody wanted to look fresh. People was competing to see who could be the freshest. When I go there, man, the clothes these brothers and sisters are wearing, it just makes me so proud to see them looking that way and knowing that they're planting, because in Burkina Faso, they're actually planting the seed to produce the cotton, picking the cotton, refining the cotton, and then making the clothes, and they have their own styles. And when you see them wearing them proud with all the colors, you're like, man, they doing it. It really, 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 really makes you proud. We, part of my mission that I've taken is, I've said I have to stop. I saw what they did to us here in America and how they demoralized us through culture. I saw what they did and how they got us from where we were when I was growing up even to where we are today. I do not want to allow the damage they've done to us to be used as the leverage to destroy the momentum that our brothers and sisters, the good ones, Baba Goita, Baba Traore, Baba Chiani, and all the strong brothers and sisters of the AES, the great work that they're doing. I don't want us to be what hinders their progress. I want us to help chop those images that are coming across the airways from France, with the blacks dancing and gyrating with their hip-hop French stuff, talking about the same filth and degeneracy, the same popping bottles and all this kind of stuff, the same message of self-destruction and lack of progressive behavior. I want to help prevent that they have done to us from happening to the brothers and sisters that are moving in the right direction on the continent. I think it's imperative that we do that, because we got to remember, 50 million of us here in the U.S. have been quarantined for 400 years. Whether we like to admit it or not, we like to say we want to be here. Yeah, all that's fine, but the bottom line is, wasn't no way that we could easily go. First, during our enslavement, it was hard to go anywhere because you was on a plantation if you were in the South. Then if you were in the North, you were happy that you weren't on a slave plantation, but the ease of movement wasn't exactly simple, and it was just as racist and hate-filled as black people. So it wasn't, we haven't had any easy times in this place, and we didn't have easy access to move and go where we wanted to go. But being here, being outnumbered and outgunned for 400 years, they have the time to test the breaking down of the African spirit. Our spirit is indomitable. We're unconquerable people to some degree, but we can go through spells of darkness. That's what our story of Asara said in the Rutella. There's some dark times. We're in the dark times right now. Our times are dark here in America. They're very bright on the continent, but they're dark here. We can, though, having learned how they produce this darkness, we can help bring the light out of ourselves and then carry the light and the wisdom to our brothers and sisters internationally and say, hey, be careful of this. We got into this. We didn't know what we were doing. We got into it. We liked it, but this is where that rhythm takes you. Don't go there like that. Keep doing what you're doing like this. Don't take it that direction. We can save African people. We can save our people. We got to be helpful and beneficial and thoughtful in doing it.
Go ahead, brother. We rocking with you.
Okay. I'm seeing you got any more questions? Because I think I went on a long run right there. You got another question or comment or something you want me to speak on?
Give me 1 second.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, but you can go ahead and do your plugs and stuff, man. Tell the people where they can find you, what you got coming up.
Yeah. Actually, right now, pretty much every now and then I'll put some on Facebook. You know, they've been what they call, I think they call it shadow banning. So they've been pretty much blocking me mostly on the internet. So some of the discussions I have where I really show what's going on around the world and what's happening in Haiti, what's going on in Africa, and have more intimate details. At this point, I don't put a lot of them on the basic internet. I put them on Patreon. So I have a Patreon channel where I upload things. It's $99 per month. So only people that do it that really are familiar with my work and want to see the work and see what's really going on. You know, we talk about internationally what's going on, these wars, how it affects Black people, who the real players are, some of the real things that are happening, some of the names and things that if I did it in places like this, they would definitely start having a problem and shutting people's channels down. So I do most of it on my Patreon. If you go to Patreon, you go to Irritated Genie, and that's where we do it. And again, that's for people who are really serious. It's $99 per month, but there, whenever I do some things that you can't find other places, that's where you can find a lot of that. And it also helps support some of the efforts we have to do some of the different programming and some of the things we want to do to help fight and resist some of the things we're talking about. We're not just talking about them, we're participating in making a change.
All right. We appreciate that information as well. I did share the little video that I put together or whatnot for introduction to this interview, and it has been very enlightening, and definitely appreciate your time. I know you are a brother who has had, again, a mass impact on people being able to address the topics that we've discussed tonight, which again, you know, we already know based on the fact of our indoctrination into Islam, Judaism, and Christianity has been a very sticky topic and a topic many don't, like to speak on, right? Based on, again, indoctrination into the various 1 degree of knowledge that many of us have gotten stuck into. Because again, whether you are Islamic by way of Sunni Islam or Nation of Islam or Orthodox Islamism and the various channels of what we reference as Judaism, it makes a lot of the, for lack of a better word, pedo activity kind of okay, based on their doctrine. Their doctrine says, once a female does this, or, mentorism of a young boy is okay, and that's what we deal with, has caused this going against the grain of nature, because that's my preference of utilization. Instead of using the word homosexuality or LMNOPTQUFU type of language, all of that goes against the grain of nature. Once we go against the grain of nature, we shall cease to exist. We'll be the nation of people who has a negative birth rate. And up until this time, it's always been the others who have had a negative birth rate. It hasn't been us, regardless to Margaret Sanger and the Planned Parenthood or whatnot, we've always been able to procreate. I'll just put it that way. Now we live in a different time as to where they're even again allowing their transsexual, homosexual people to come in and read to our babies. Like in my day and age, that would be unheard of, and in the day and age of our parents, that would be unheard of. There would be, riots based upon that. But based on some of the things that we touched on today concerning the entertainment industry as a whole, it's made that acceptable. And again, within our communities and our neighborhoods, that is very unacceptable. And those who have to be accountable for that type of acceptance has to be us, right? We're the ones who have children and soon to come grandchildren who have to live in this current society. And if we're not teaching the babies that, hey, that's against the grain of nature, the same way what we see on the screen, which is Remus and Romulus, which is their babies feeding off a she-wolf. We didn't go through that. This was their rite of passage. This wasn't our rite of passage as to where our children had to feed off a she-wolf. Again, this is their stuff. The same way when we talk about the Sparta and the 300 and the various Greek philosophers or whatnot, that is of their origins. It has nothing to do with our origins. So again, we have to stand against what they are currently pushing upon the general population of people to let our people know this is against nature. And once we begin to go against nature, we will cease to exist as a people, as a nation, globally, not just here in North, Central, and South America. So again, we appreciate you giving us our time. We hope to have you come back again and we go over, some things with a little bit more knowledge and a little bit more time of what we had this evening. But again, we align with 100% of what you've spoken about this evening without any hesitation. I just want you to know that I get into the various us as a people, again, being the most ancient people, we must be, again, there will be no alphabet, there will be no numerology or anything without our ancestors. So without us being bilingual, trilingual, and multilingual, it's hard to get a grasp upon what the meanings, the origins of the various meanings of words. And I just want people to be aware of that, to know why it's certain things or certain pronunciations of certain words that we as a people have. It's not just based upon, oh, you only speak English, so this is the only way that you know to say a particular word. No, it's based upon our ancestry.
Well, I thank you for the opportunity to come to speak to your audience. It's been good. I'm glad people were able to come in and tune in, and I hope that you gained something from the back and forth dialogue tonight. I think it's important that we're able to do this. I remember there was a time we used to always have discussions and dialogue, and you have agreement and disagreement, but that helps build the mind. That helps make people better and improve because we listen to each other and we hear. And black folk, we go back and forth. I'm DC, you from Detroit. Now we expect a Detroiter. If anybody know the D, if you have a Detroiter that's not aggressive, then they're not really from Detroit. If you got a DC dude, at some point, some part of aggression gonna come out of. That's just who we are. But we do it in love, because the aggression really is in the spirit of the defense of the well-being of our people and trying to get to the better space that we can do better for our people. So I thank you for the opportunity. Look forward to coming back, and I really, really enjoyed it tonight.
Me too. That's what it is. What they say, steel sharpens steel or whatnot. I've learned some things. Hopefully you are open enough to learn some things from me, and we carry on into the next journey. And again, this was about the babies. It wasn't about you and I, right? You and I are of age enough to have had multiple experience to be able to, have knowledge and wisdom to be able to share with the people. Again, this is about the children so that they know a lot of what has been projected upon them is not reality. It's a matter of, again, the entertainment industry being able to gain a foothold upon their minds, and we don't want them to have a foothold upon their minds. It's us who's supposed to take them through a rites of passage as minors, as to where when they graduate into adulthood, they're able to have some of what we have to offer.
Absolutely.
Yep. And with that, we're going to say peace to our listeners, and we're going to take you out. And my brother Ayu Kimathati, the Irritated Genie, by way, if you didn't get the name of the book and the author that he mentioned, make sure you go back through the lectures so that you can purchase the book and get a better understanding as to where us as indigenous, aboriginal, autochthonous people of the planet, being the most ancient people of the planet, where our stance was against these invaders. Is there anything you want to plug before we go? Any emails, any upcoming lectures, or anything of that nature?
Right now I'm drawing a blank. I know there's some things that are coming, but I don't actually have the information in front of me for my dates and times. But anybody that's tuned in, you can go to Ayo Kimathi on Facebook, and whatever we have, I'll post it there usually if we have something coming up that's public. So it'll be posted there. Ayo Kimathi.
All right, brother. We love you and appreciate you over here, and we'll have you again on soon.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate you.
All right. Peace, God.
YouTube, you fools try to limit me, muting and deleting channels, thinking that's the end of me. Y'all are not on my level, smaller than a centipede. This is my purpose, TBT is a ministry. I do not tire, my God gives me energy. Chose by Messiah, you believe, come get with me. Married to a black queen, we got the illest chemistry. Founded the Black Tube, and now we making history. Black Tube, 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 what? Black Tube, 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 what? TBT, 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 what? TBT, 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 what? TheBlackTube.com. I'm a giant killer, son of an omniscient God who's realer. If this be the thriller in Manila, I'm Ali in his prime. It's showtime, go time, about to take what's mine. We are not with your agenda. We showing real.
Supreme.
Shock. Etymology. They say I'm dope. I said I'm smoke, fire, blowing air, carbon, earth, solid, water, wet. I'm steady beat, a sister soldier that dies effects. So gone with all that hoopla and rah-rah. Unless you talking about Atun, Namuna, Amara, pineal glands, all see your eyes. We call the third eye. We came to build, not pay your bill. Slam in municipality, city seals like roadkill, descendants of Asian mound builders. Not supposed to need encyclopedias, genetically encoded with 720. We got amnesia, claiming we Christian cretins in love with Yahweh, Muhammad, and Jesus. But you was living inside of God when you was a fetus. But believers and never believers, non-believers.